morning. Let's hear it for the Max Vanderbeek Jazz Group. Thank you. Thank you very much, Max. Thank you. Well, welcome. I'm getting my glasses on or off here. You could be anywhere this morning, but you're here, and we really appreciate you being here for our 2024 client event, Elville and Associates and Gary Greenwald, PC. So thanks to you. I would like to thank Jeff Stauffer for all of his hard work and all of our team that supported Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. And I'd like to thank our speakers in advance, who Jeff is going to introduce separately. But I also want to recognize our attorneys and staff at Elville and Associates who have lined up over here. So thank you, and please recognize them, and hopefully they're here today to make sure you have everything you need. I'd like to give some special recognition to Lillian Hummel, who is my law partner and also the head of our Rockville office at 1700 Rockville Pike. Lily, can you wave your hand there? And I would like to also say that Lily is the current chair of the Montgomery County Elder Law section of the bar. So she does a lot of continuing education on a monthly basis, I think, Lily. And also I want to thank Jason Frank, who is our main speaker today. Jason came all the way up from Louisiana, all the way up. I won't say from the bayous, but he came up from Louisiana. There's Jason, and Jeff is going to introduce Jason. Jeff, is Jason's resume about 15 pages? Okay, well, we won't read all 15 pages or 20 pages, but Jason is a prolific and well-known certified elder law attorney who's now retired. He was the attorney for the Baltimore County Office on Aging. He was and is a political activist for seniors across Maryland and the country. He was a mentor to people like me and lots of other elder law attorneys in Maryland. And interestingly, and very importantly, he wrote the book on elder law in Maryland. So literally called Elder Law in Maryland. Jason's wife, Lori, was a prolific elder law attorney also in Maryland. So we are very, very lucky to have him here today. And lastly, you're going to receive a lot of information today. Tremendous amount of information. You're not expected to remember it all. But I want you to remember, when this whole thing is over this morning, when you're overwhelmed with information, we've got your back. We've got your back. We're here to help make sure that your estate plan works. We're here to guide you, your family, your fiduciaries. So just remember, if it gets a little overwhelming, remember we've got your back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Steve. We'll have a little more music from Max and Natalie, and then we'll get started promptly on time, and you will be required to remember everything today. I know many of you are waiting for me to sing, but that's not going to happen. The only thing I can sing is Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash. If you want to hear that. That is another one of my favorite songs of all time. Okay. Max and Amanda are going to be back for our break. But for now, we're going to get started. And it's my pleasure to introduce our first presenter this morning, Mr. Stephen Elville, President, Managing Principal, CEO, and Lead Attorney of Elville and Associates. I'm going to go off script a little bit real quick and just say I want to thank Steve for all that he does for our firm and its clients and the community at large. And myself personally, I've known Steve for about 23 years, 5 days, 6 seconds, and 5 hours. Steve, just want to thank you for everything you do. Without you, none of this is possible. Thank you. So many of you have worked with Steve before, heard him speak through the hundreds of educational presentations he's offered throughout the years, and through his leadership efforts in 25 years working in elder law, estate planning, and special needs planning, and more. Steve and the firm maintain a strong focus on client education, working to bring peace of mind to clients and offering solutions to their needs through client education, collaboration, and leading-edge legal technical knowledge. And Steve's been named to the Maryland Super Lawyers list for a 9th time in 2024 and an 8th consecutive year, and we'll see what this 2025 year brings. I'm pretty confident, though. And Steve and the firm have grown over the past 14 years to be widely recognized as one of the leading planning firms throughout Maryland and beyond, and a resource to tens of thousands of people over the years. And we continue to expand, and I'm very proud of that, and remain true to our mission. And we're just getting started, I think. So Steve, thanks again for all you do. And Mr. Stephen Elville, everyone.
Good morning again. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of two people that I want to introduce before I get started. So we have two young superstars who just passed the Maryland bar. So if they could come in, I see one of them already. Sarah Von Stein Echeverria, excuse me. Sarah, raise your hand. So proud of her. And our newest associate to be, Nicholas Carpenter, who hails from Connecticut. Thank you both. Very proud of you. Well, you know, if you've ever spoken in front of a crowd or any kind of gathering, sometimes you might say, well, it's hard to go after this person who just spoke, right? This person did such a great job, it's humbling to have to go after them. But I will reverse that this morning and say it's kind of humbling to go before some of these people who are going to speak today. Because you're not only hearing from people of a vast experience, but people who I literally mean are the best of the best. And I was just talking to Jason Frank over breakfast over here, and he was telling me just what he's doing right now in retirement. And I got exhausted just listening to it. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started now, so I'll be on time. And we want to end on time because we're going a little bit longer than we normally do. We're going till 12:30. So, is there a lot going on in the world right now? Are you exhausted from the election, no matter what side of the political aisle you may be on? Are you exhausted from it? But you're glad it's over, right? And there's a lot of change going on in the world. There's a lot of change as we age. There's a lot of things going on in our lives, collectively and respectively. So what we're going to talk about this morning is trying to make sense of what is conventional estate planning and elder law planning. And you're going to hear from real experts here this morning. And we're going to try to make sense of that. So we're all aging. We all have our issues. We all have family issues. Our health status may change. We talked about that. But remember, at the center of it, all planning, in my opinion, is goal-driven. G-O-A-L. Goal-driven. If you know what your goal is, you can get somewhere, right? So, but that goal may change over time. So I'm going to start throwing out things now. So remember, even though Jeff said you have to remember everything, you don't. You don't have to remember all this. So a lot of this information applies to both sides of the aisle. Conventional estate planning, elder care planning, things that we would consider to be elder care. So I'm going to talk about level of care. As we get older or we're dealing with aging parents, one of the things that is a big driver of what kind of planning should be in place is level of care. You're going to hear from Allison Stanton and her colleague this morning, one of the best life care managers that there is today. They're going to talk about many things, but you're going to get the gist of level of care. Incapacity planning, whether you are Jonathan Blotmacher, who arguably was the greatest estate planning attorney in the world, especially in his own mind, but he is a really prolific estate planning attorney. Whether you're representing billionaires in Manhattan or San Francisco, or whether we're dealing with a routine plan for a couple or a single person, the financial power of attorney and the incapacity planning documents are the most important, arguably, of all the documents. Cost of care. Does cost of care continue to go up or down? It's going up. Government benefits. Are government benefits important? And this is on both sides. Conventional estate planning, elder care planning, these things cross over. Flexibility in planning. With everything that's going on today, do we want to build flexibility in our planning? Yes. So flexibility is one of the key things to walk away from today. There's not a day that goes by in our practice that I'm not talking to somebody about building flexibility. The other thing I'm talking to them about is that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I didn't see that kind of flexibility in the law. So the good news is that we have some new things in the law that help us have more flexibility. Collaborative team. We have Alex here this morning who's going to talk to us. He's a financial advisor, but he's also going to talk about Social Security. You should have a collaborative team, whether you are doing conventional estate planning or elder care planning. A financial advisor, a CPA. We just talked this morning to a couple of clients about their CPAs. Your elder care or estate planning attorney, your aging life care manager. I referred at least 3 or 4 people in the last couple of days to an aging life care manager. And in some cases, you should have a life insurance professional. Maryland law, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Maryland law has modernized. Jason will have his own opinion about this. But I can remember when we didn't have non-judicial settlement agreements. Don't worry about that if you don't know what that is. I can remember when we didn't have decanting. I can remember when we didn't have trust protectors. I can remember when the law wasn't really even up to snuff until 2014. So Maryland has modernized its laws. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing with that. And the estate and trust section of the bar has done a great job. The elder law section of the bar is also doing a great job. Outside jurisdictions. Many of you have heard that, well, maybe there are better care options in Delaware. Well, that's probably true. Jason has his own opinion about this, but I think Maryland is one of the worst places to age in the country. So we need to be aware of that. Level of care issues are important because they relate to the cost of care and what is going to be paid for by the state and federal government and what isn't. So outside jurisdictions, New York, much more robust medical assistance or Medicaid programs. So we have to be aware in modern elder law, we have to be aware of jurisdictional issues. Asset preservation. Some of you are preserving assets for creditor protection purposes, for your loved ones, your children, your special needs beneficiaries. But in elder law, we might do a different kind of asset preservation. And even in that genre of asset preservation in elder law, you can still preserve assets for conventional estate planning purposes in further trust to protect beneficiaries from creditors and divorces and bankruptcy and so forth. How you dispose of your assets could be affected by whether you are on this side and doing conventional estate planning or whether that has crossed over into elder care planning. How that's going to be affected. And Maryland has some great laws now that allow us to plan for disabled spouses without the worry of payback to the state of Maryland. Jason was just sharing with me that he's on a committee that is studying recovery, state recovery, and payback to the state. And so legal strategies are going to vary depending on which side of the fence we are on. All right, and Jeff just reminded me that I didn't even use my clicker. Sorry about that. That's where we were supposed to be. All right, so now we'll go to the next one. All right, so what happens as we age? Well, many of you, whether you knew it or not, have been on the hero's journey. The hero's journey was made famous by Joseph Campbell about how we go out in our lives and we go on a mission, perhaps, and you accomplish and you do things and you go through many trials and tribulations. And eventually you overcome those obstacles and you have accomplished the hero's journey. That's why you're here today. You have overcome many things, and you're going to continue to do that. Our lives are a series of events. We started out young and healthy, and hopefully you still are. We have children, maybe. We potentially plan for guardians of minor children. Then we have career. How many of you still have aging parents? I know many of you have lost your aging parents, okay? I'm in that category. So we're worried about that as we get older. Not only ourselves, but that pressure point of taking care of aging parents as well as ourselves and our own families. Increasing wealth for many of you. We're having unprecedented gains, right, in investments. So we have a population of very much increased wealth generally across the country. What I hope you're taking away from this so far is I'm kind of setting the stage for what's really happening in our lives, right? A lot of things are happening around this idea of planning and what's happening, whether our wealth is increasing, whether our wealth is decreasing, whether our health is good or bad. Many of you have long-term care insurance. Many of you don't. I always say, bravo, even if you only have $100 a day benefit, bravo that you have long-term care insurance, or you have a hybrid product. Somebody came in the other day and said they had just bought an insurance product that had a hybrid long-term care rider. So I was very, very happy about that, right? If it was affordable, that is going to plug a big gap and a big worry for them. But if you don't have long-term care insurance, we're going to be more focused on legal strategies instead of just financial strategies. Okay, the prospect of disability, again, gets back to the issue of incapacity and making sure we understand the nature of the incapacity documents. Would you believe me when I say that Elville and Associates takes flack for the fact that we actually emphasize these documents? A lot of law firms do not emphasize these documents, and they think that they're just plain vanilla. But you know better. You know that these documents are very important. So as your wealth increases, or whatever your life situation may be, you may look at self-insurance versus government benefits. And Jason, who has practiced many more years than I, he may have stories of his own. I'm sure he does. I've told him to be on his best behavior today, by the way. And I've seen someone burn through $4 million for long-term care. So, you know, that's pretty extreme, but I have seen it. So we want to examine this and talk to professionals. So we talked about this a little bit, world events. I don't need to tell you what's going on in the world. Our world is kind of a scary place. And all of this is going to lead to one conclusion as we kind of work through my presentation, and that is getting to the point where we understand that updating and maintenance of your estate plan is really important. Changes in the laws, right? Do those happen? Well, the Secure Act from 2020 has changed twice already. I'm sure it's going to change again. So that's just one example. Decanting. Decanting was last year, about a year ago. It really makes a big difference in our planning. Get your minds around decanting. So changes in the laws occur. Your documents need to address this. Your fiduciaries need to understand this. The political winds, I don't need to tell you about that. The political winds can affect the estate tax exemptions. Right now, our estate tax exemption is $13,610,000. Next year, it's going to be $13,990,000. A lot of us thought it was going to be 14 million something next year. It's going to be 13,990,000. In the state of Maryland, we have one of the only states that has a state estate tax and an inheritance tax. The good news is the inheritance tax is abolished basically for most people, but not for all people. So Maryland's exemption from estate tax is $5 million. All right. Just a couple more words on the estate tax. So many of you were wondering up until Tuesday who was going to be the next president. And the potential Harris administration, which will not be the administration, they were proposing a $3.5 million exemption, meaning a reduction in the big exemptions down to $3.5 million, which is the 2009 levels. And they were proposing a 39.6% income tax. But that's not going to happen, obviously, and the Republican majority, perhaps, is going to extend the American Tax Relief Act of 2010, and we're going to see. So if nothing happens politically, then the exemption amounts are going to come down to $7.2 to $7.5 million per person, for those of you who are interested in that. We don't know what's going to happen with Maryland's exemption, but 7.2 to 7.5, somewhere in there. And that's because of the expiration of the American Tax Relief Act at the end of 2025. Now with the Republican administration that's going to come in, I doubt that that's going to happen, but we have to keep both eyes open, and we very well may have an extension of the estate tax exemptions. All right, so thanks for hanging in there with me so far. I hope I've set the stage for just how much is going on out there in the minds of everyday Americans as far as planning goes, and as far as what we're thinking about constantly. All the flexibility, all the incapacity planning, all the estate tax planning, all the elder care planning, all the special needs planning, planning for spouses with special needs. So I'm going to try to juxtapose this now with a more in-depth discussion of the foundational planning, heritage planning, which we call kind of a mid-level planning, and then advanced planning we might call legacy planning. These terms don't really mean anything. They're not really anything more than just terms of art. So when I say foundational, heritage, or legacy planning, I'm just really talking about 3 tiers of planning. So when we're talking about basic foundational planning, we're really talking about what most of you know already, which is what happens during life, what happens during my life, and what happens at my death. So it's all about control, making sure you have the right of self-determination. You may, as a family that was just doing basic planning, and I do know there's some young families in here, we might be focused on life insurance and financial planning and providing for guardians of minor children. So those of you who have grandchildren now, you might be concerned about your children having this basic foundational planning in place. So that is really the long and short of that. We're planning for what happens at death, but also what happens during life. I had a client live to 106 about 8 years ago, and we just had a recent client, and the family might even be here, who lived to 103. So people are living a long time. Don't forget to plan for incapacity. Okay, when we're looking at heritage planning, which we're not going to get into great depth on, we're just really talking about more complex issues. We're dealing with maybe discretionary gifts during life, charitable planning, philanthropy, providing for grandchildren because you have some disposable assets to be able to do that. You might have other special purposes, but we're talking about how to leave assets. How do we leave assets for asset protection? Maryland is not an asset protection state, but you can still achieve a lot of nice asset protection. Or for those of you who are more adventurous, we might go over to our neighbors in Delaware and do asset protection in an asset protection state. We might plan for remarriage protection and the new spousal elective share law. We need to be aware of what that is. So we're looking at estate and gift tax planning. We're planning for IRAs. Many of you have large IRAs, or you have a focus of your assets in IRAs. So there are some new techniques, and we're going to talk about that at the upcoming December client care program. We've got a new technique for how to leave assets into long-term trusts if it's an IRA, and that's a tricky business, leaving an IRA into a long-term trust. So we want to make sure we understand that and at least have the option to do it or not do it. So asset preservation, we want to just talk about whether we want to divest assets for long-term care or we're not going into that direction. Special needs planning, Maryland still, in my opinion, is a wonderful place to be able to do special needs planning for your loved ones with disabilities, including a spouse with a disability. How many of you would guess that income tax planning is really the name of the game in 2024 and 2025? Depending on what the estate tax exemptions do, whether they remain high or not, they're still going to be very high, even if it comes down to $7.5 million per person. Through portability, you can leave $15 million if it's 7.5. Right now, you can leave $27 million without any estate tax. So when you're living in a world where most people don't have $27 million, some of you do, but if you're living in a world where you can leave $27 million without estate tax, then that means we don't have to worry about that too much, and we can focus on income tax planning. So income tax planning is really the name of the game in conventional estate planning. Life insurance planning, business planning, and so forth. Now, advanced spousal planning might mean that we develop a lifetime spousal trust, or there might be business planning, or advanced charitable planning, or multi-jurisdictional planning like Delaware planning. All right, so I'm just going to look at my time and speed up here just a little bit. Now, we're going to switch to the elder care side of things. So we've got all of that going on. Some of it's applicable to the elder care planning side, some of it isn't, but here are things you may know already and some that you don't. So we have aging parents, we talked about that. So we want to have foundational planning for flexibility. For those of you who don't have aging parents, but you're becoming an aging parent yourself, we want to make sure that your kids have the flexibility and so forth. Long-term care strategies for asset preservation, flexibility in powers of attorney. I know I'm repeating myself. Flexibility in the advance directives, okay? I sat with an elderly couple yesterday afternoon at their home, and they were taking time to really think through how to structure some specific instructions in their advance directive. Avoidance of guardianship. Now see, all of this that we're talking about right now is foundational to conventional estate planning too. But we might say as we get older, this is going to become more in focus. We want to avoid guardianship, have our own right of self-determination. We want to understand Maryland law with regard to healthcare decision making. Again, I'm repeating myself, but we want to understand jurisdictional issues. This is very important. I spoke to someone yesterday in Annapolis who's actually going to consider their relative having long-term care in Delaware because there's going to be more options and more benefits over in Delaware, most likely. In elder care, we're thinking about pre-crisis planning. Are we healthy and well? But some reason we've reached an age where our goal is to preserve some of our assets for long-term care. We want to transfer a brokerage account, or we want to transfer a house into a specific kind of irrevocable trust to try to avoid that asset being spent down for long-term care. That could include veterans planning. So in that meeting yesterday I was having, that one particular spouse is a veteran. So we want to make sure we're thinking about veterans planning. We want to have the ability to shift gears. So even if we're not proactively doing elder care planning, we want to be able to shift to that. And that's one of the nice things about powers of attorney being flexible. Now, everybody who has a power of attorney is not necessarily going to allow massive flexible powers in it. So just remember, all powers of attorney are not plain vanilla. They're different, and you need to be aware of that. So we need the ability to shift gears. Elder care focuses on housing, Social Security, medical assistance, which is what Maryland calls Medicaid, or Medicaid in Maryland is called medical assistance. We talked a few times about planning for spouses with disability. What's the thrust that I'm trying to throw out here? You can shift planning because of your diligence and reviewing your planning, but you can also shift planning when someone becomes incapacitated because you have built flexibility into the plan. Again, special needs planning is part of elder law, assisted living contracts, placement, skilled nursing placement and contracts, level of care issues. We don't have time to get into it this morning, but you have experts here who will, and the level of care, depending on how much your wealth has accumulated or not, the level of care in the future could determine where you might have to live for long-term care. So purposes. So we want to always be thinking about what is my income, what are my assets, and do I have some kind of long-term care product? And then of course all of this relates to financial planning. So we want a collaborative team. Now as we go to the next page, and I'm going to wrap up soon. Changing circumstances, again, I'm being intentionally redundant. Family unity. How's your family? First thing I ask is, do the kids get along? And Jason taught many of us years ago to ask that question. Do the kids get along? Are there problems within the family? And we can build around that, hopefully, or we can resolve it. We talked about flexibility in Maryland law, trust protectors, special fiduciary who can remove and replace trustees, special fiduciary who can make administrative changes to a trust. A non-judicial settlement agreement is a nice way to be able to change something that 20 years ago we would have thought is irrevocable, can't change it. Decanting is the process of either amending a trust in a substantial way or changing a trust to a completely different trust. And so as we juxtapose these issues, as we age, as the world changes, as the political winds blow, all these things lead us to always be thinking about updating, and we're going to talk about that as I wrap up, updating, but also being able to shift gears and also understand that there is a difference between these two types of philosophies. Some of you are going to self-insure. Some of you have a nice collaborative team. Other of you will be planning to self-insure, but then as time goes by, things might change. So one of the things I'm proud of about Elville and Associates is we talk to people about this particular issue. So as we go to the next slide, remember that elder care planning also involves wills. It also involves revocable trusts, financial powers of attorney, advance directives, supported decision-making agreements. If you are interested in learning about supported decision-making, we can send you a video of a webinar that we've done on that. We understand that Maryland is one of the only states that requires MOLST, the medical order for life-sustaining treatment. If you're not familiar with this, you can go to the Attorney General's website and learn more about MOLST. We can do creditor protection in elder care planning, not just asset preservation. We mentioned long-term care insurance. We still are going to be planning for IRAs, but maybe not with such intensity as we would otherwise in conventional planning. Business planning doesn't really fall within elder care, but someone could own a business and now need an elder care strategy. Income tax planning, special needs planning, asset preservation of all kinds, whether it's a divestment of assets in a pre-crisis situation or whether it's preserving half of the assets if no other planning has been done. So as I'm going to kind of wrap up quickly here, Jeff, because I've run out of time, I think. But just remember, we have the need for flexibility, but even though the focus might change to a different direction based on health, changes in the family, and the fact that assets may not be sufficient to pay for long-term care, we can still include some of these conventional concepts in an elder care plan, or it might just be a purely elder care focused plan for getting that loved one the care that they need and advocacy for that person and care management, as you see here in one of these ending slides. So as I wrap up, and I know I've gone over, I'm encouraging you to have a collaborative team. I'm encouraging you to talk to us. If you don't have a collaborative team, we will make recommendations to you. You'll notice in this collaborative team, I've got an attorney, a financial advisor, a certified public accountant, a life insurance professional, and an aging life care manager. So the needs for those various professionals are going to change over time. All this to say that if you update and maintain your estate plan, you will always be ahead of the game. Some of you are so organized, and we appreciate you so much. Your commitment to education coming out this morning when you could be somewhere else. But just remember, you're doing all that work to get your planning in place. If you maintain and update your estate plan, you'll always be ahead of the ball game. You'll know about changes in the laws. We'll be talking in a partnership relationship about changes in health and all of these issues, family changes, goal changes, financial changes, changes in the laws, tax law changes, continuing education of your fiduciaries, and not last at all, the funding of your estate plan, the alignment of your assets within your estate plan. We always want to make sure that's happening. So we encourage you to join our client care program. I'm not going to take you through all the client care slides, but Elville and Associates is one of the only firms in Maryland that has a client care program. We strongly recommend that you join. If you would like, Jeff will send you an agreement so you can learn more about the client care program. We want you to maintain your estate plan so that it works the way you want. All right, Jeff, I'm sorry that I went over by about 5 minutes, but I'm going to turn it back to you. And as I said, I'm humbled to go before these speakers. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Steve. I would never pull Steve off the stage. Never. Steve can talk as long as he would like. Thank you so much. I've introduced Steve probably about 1,000 times in my 11 years at the firm, but I've never introduced our next presenter. And he's our featured speaker, and like Steve said, he's come all the way from Louisiana to be with us this morning. Professor Jason Frank, a retired certified elder law attorney emeritus. He is synonymous with the words elder law, and throughout his 40 years and more as an attorney, Professor Frank established one of the largest elder law firms in the country, and to say that he is widely recognized as an innovator in the field is, I would say, an understatement. He's been a leader and driver behind some of the most significant legislation helping older adults and people with disabilities in Maryland and the United States. Professor Frank is the author of dozens of publications, as Steve mentioned, including the book Elder Law in Maryland. He did write the book on it, and Maryland Medicaid. He is currently an adjunct professor at Tulane University School of Law and has taught at several other universities. Professor Frank is a fellow by the Maryland Bar Association, recognized as an emeritus in elder law by the National Elder Law Foundation and the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and has received numerous lifetime achievement and leadership awards from the likes of NALA, the First Maryland Disability Trust, the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, Alzheimer's Association, and the NALA Council of Advanced Practitioners. Jason, thank you for being here today, and the podium is yours. He also wins the award for the best tie in the entire room. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
The tie is courtesy of my daughter. She, in her spare time, she plays with these sorts of designs and such. But this is one of her better ones, I think. I got to tell you, hearing about my lifetime achievements makes me wonder if they know something I don't. That perhaps the end of said lifetime is approaching. I hope not, but one never knows. Okay, let me start off by saying that I've been practicing since 1980. Doing elder law since 1983. When I started, I didn't know it had a cute name. I was just working for the University of Baltimore Law School in their clinical programs. Private practice since 1985, just to put it in some context. And then I unsuccessfully retired in 2019. I don't like to admit it, but I failed retirement. And consequently, I have found myself doing more and more things. And one of the things that I got into, and really what I'm going to talk about today, was based on the fact I've been on the board of something called the Wesley. It was a small continuing care retirement community in northern Baltimore City for many years, and as a result of a series of incredibly unfortunate events, had to sell its campus. But it still existed. The Wesley had been around, and we'll see, since 1867. People look at the old facility and say it looks like the Confederate soldiers' home. That's not quite correct. It was the Union widows' home. And that's how long it had been around. In my practice over these many years, I've often found people who said, well, you know, I need help to pay for care. Can't I get it in my house? Do I have to go to a nursing home or a retirement community, or do I have to leave in order to get the help that I need? And here it was in the middle of the pandemic. We were looking at starting over again, and we're going, you know, these various facilities, people are locked in their rooms, you know, 23 hours a day, and nobody wants that, nobody wants to move. Can't we come up with a program that lets people stay home? And that was our goal. So, you know, the home care is expensive. It's frequently unreliable. It doesn't show up. We've had that recently with my wife's aunt. People don't want to move. It's often too late to get long-term care insurance. And the Maryland Continuing Care Act, which is some 25 years old, has a provision in it for something called continuing care at home. It's under the same basic set of regulations as retirement communities, but it's been a dead letter. There was an effort early on to try and do something along these lines, and it failed. So my pandemic pro bono project, as it turned out, was writing lots and lots of contracts that took lots and lots of review and lots of hours with the Maryland Department of Aging, who regulates these things. And what we came up with is, let me think, this, Wesley Secure Care, okay? This is a program called Continuing Care at Home. It's like a CCRC, but you don't leave your house. The program provides for the services to come into your house. Who is it? Well, let's see. This is the executive director, Amanda, and care coordinator. The medical director is Deborah Wertheimer. She spent years working at the VA. Good, close friend of mine. She's extraordinary. This is the board of directors. You can see me in there, and some of the other folks who are on it as well. And as I said, the Wesley is a nonprofit. It has always been a nonprofit. It's been a nonprofit since 1867, when it was the Union Widows' Home. All right, it's been dedicated to providing quality long-term care for 100, well, what is that now? 158 years or something? I mean, this is what it does. Now, once the campus was sold, we were giving out grants to various programs, but we decided in 2020 to focus on doing something new, something that had not been done successfully in Maryland ever, which is this continuing care at home program. The original one comes out of Philadelphia, Friends Life Care. There are about 40 of these across the country. In Maryland, it's under the Department of Aging, all right? Now, the Wesley, at this point, is the only licensed continuing care at home program in Maryland. Initially, we were only licensed in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. 2 months ago, we were authorized to expand to all of Metro Baltimore to include Hartford, Carroll, Howard, Anne Arundel, and the Eastern Shore. Our goal in the next year or two is to expand statewide. So let's talk about long-term care. You know about these things, but sometimes it's good to just burn it in, all right? Someone turning 65 today has about a 70% chance of needing some kind of long-term care and supports in the rest of their lives. Women live longer, so they need it for longer. 3.7 years than the men, 2.2. 20% need it for more than 5 years. And as we know, not you, but not many people have actually planned for it. And the overwhelming majority of people want to age in place in their own home. Come on, it just makes sense. It ain't cheap. Home care these days is about $33 an hour. Most people need it about 6 hours a day. You can see what the costs are. This is not inexpensive. You know this. That's why you're here. That's why you're his client. It's a good thing. Assisted living ain't cheap either. And memory care adds another layer to that. Skilled nursing. This is what Genworth says it costs in Maryland. And this is a couple years old, and I think it's a couple years out of date. My experience dealing with it in the last couple of years is you need to add a couple $1,000s to that. A month. So we're talking somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 a year. I'm sorry, I mean, unless you've got $27 million between you, this hurts. What are the options? Long-term care insurance, continuing care retirement communities, private pay as you go. That's expensive. Family and friends. It's a nice, quick way to find out just how close your family is and who your friends are or aren't. Just when you start asking them for help. Continuing care at home, this is an option. And Medicaid long-term services and supports. And that is the primary payer. That's who pays for most long-term care, is Medicaid. It's got lots of rules, and you can't have much money to qualify for it. You have to be a citizen of the United States, a Maryland resident, sick enough to be in a nursing home. Steve was talking about level of care. This is where it gets tight, because frequently people are said, "You're not sick enough. Go away." Your income has to be less than your cost of care. That's not really that tough. I mean, when the cost of care is $15,000 a month, not a lot of my old clients fit that bill. But then your assets have to be almost nothing. For an individual, it can't be more than $2,500. You can have a house subject to Medicaid's not really a public benefit program, it's a loan. Okay? And if you have a house, they're going to get paid back. This is one of the projects I'm working on now. It's a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys Foundation. We're doing an advocacy and an education program on the negative consequences, not just to families, but to neighborhoods, cohorts. There's a lot about Medicaid estate recovery that's really negative, and something I'm working on. The spousal rules. This is some of the stuff you have to go through in order to get Medicaid to pay for your sick spouse. It's a lot. Look at this. I mean, you go through all this stuff when you meet with clients. I mean, you may have heard all these things and let it go out of your mind because you don't want to hear it, and I don't blame you. But they do an assessment of resources when the first day of the month, somebody goes in for more than 30 days. And as of January this year, the well spouse gets to keep not less than $30,828 or half up to a maximum of $154. And don't miss it by a dollar, or else you're going to owe another, $10,000, $15,000 before you become eligible for Medicaid. So, I mean, it doesn't leave you with a lot of money in order to get help. And this is really only available in nursing homes. So to protect the community's spouse, you take a look at this snapshot, you keep the maximum you can. The sick spouse keeps $2,500, and I know that in meeting with clients, you go through all the strategies, whether it's an annuity, an immediate annuity for the well spouse, a gift and partial return, special needs. There are all these strategies we have developed because we're good lawyers. Thank you. And you pay us for it. Thank you. And there are exclusions, and you can go through all these things, and believe me, it's painful and time-consuming. And the alternative that we have developed is this. This is the Continuing Care at Home program. You join when you're healthy and independent. You can't do this. You can't wait till you get sick and say, oh, I need it now. You have to do it when you're healthy and independent. It's a membership program. There's a one-time entrance fee and their monthly fee. It's like a retirement community in that sense that there's an entrance fee and a monthly fee, but the numbers are a fraction, as you'll see. Focuses on proactive health and wellness to reduce the need for facility-based care. The care coordination is central. Advocacy, navigation, access to services, relationship center. There's no waiting periods for benefits to begin. You need help, you get help once you're in. You get access to a care coordinator, a personalized care plan, wellness plan, vetted vendor referrals, all these various assessments and connections. The idea is that it's a community, it's a retirement community without walls, because the walls are yours. The walls are your house walls. You stay home. Personal emergency response, telephone, medically necessary training, all these things are a fundamental part of this program. This is a program not of walls, not of bricks and mortar, it's contracts. I know, I wrote them all. Tailored, this is the vetted, this is how we get our vetted service providers through Dorby. It's a tailored concierge service. We just got these guys, they're good. Members receive the highest quality services. They're vetted, background checked, insured. Everything's outsourced to these people who know what they're doing, and you get a single bill every month for what they've done. As I say, we initially have started in Baltimore City, Baltimore County. We recently formed a partnership with Greenwald, which is a continuing care retirement community. It is bricks and mortar. To help, it's a very synergistic, symbiotic relationship, I think. The members have access to all the various amenities at Greenwald, their wellness center, pool, classes, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know if you have seen anything about this, but Greenwald has entered into a partnership with Goucher College so that the residents are involved with the classes, the various educational programs. It's the university-based community. It's something that's been, there are a number of instances similar to this nationally, nothing like it in Maryland, and this is something that Greenwald is going forward with Goucher. I think it sounds great, personally. And it gives you priority access to the long-term care at Greenwald. Home care, what else does this program provide? It's home care supports and services, adult day, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing. We were required to have contracts with these providers should our members ever find themselves in a situation where they need to go elsewhere. Okay. We have preferred providers, and they have agreed to accept our members' payments as payment in full. We have Elizabeth Cooney, adult day services at St. Anne's in Levendale, assisted living in Broadmead, Caritas House, Springwell, Edenwald, skilled nursing in Broadmead. Now remember, we were initially focused in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. We are expanding our agreements with, we're talking to a bunch of folks all throughout the Baltimore metropolitan area and the Eastern Shore. But these are the people we have contracts with initially. The role of the care coordinator, which I think you're going to hear more about, I dare say. Initial and ongoing assessments, advocacy, and navigation through the healthcare system. No small feat, as you will hear even more about. Because when you're sick and you're hurting, the last thing you need to do is to fight about services and navigating through the healthcare system. Coordination of services, working with family members, established healthcare providers, and it's a personal relationship. It's easily accessible. One of the things about the contract that we put in there is that family members can be paid to provide services to their family members. All right, trained and paid. It's portable anywhere, literally, in the country. We looked at who cares more about you than your family. So we decided to incorporate this into the basic contract. You don't have to, but if the family wants to be involved in caregiving, they can. Not as volunteers, but as paid by the program. At this point, you have to be 60 or older. This is the expansion that we just got. Relatively healthy and independent, well-managed chronic conditions. It's not as strict a medical eligibility as long-term care insurance. All right? I'll tell you what the secret is. Whatever's wrong with you, as long as it doesn't put you into a nursing home in 3 years, you're probably going to be okay. All right? It's the 3-year consideration, how long you can be independent, not require the long-term care services from the program. So well-managed chronic conditions, you're not in need of services now, no dementia diagnosis, financial eligibility, this is not inexpensive, and you have to have medical insurance. These are some of the requirements under the contract. So you ask, what does it cost? I'll tell you. The Chesapeake, had to name it after something, so bodies of water in Maryland, okay? This is the 361 a day program. This is the full benefit. So when we have preferred providers like Broadmead or any of those that assisted living or nursing, they have agreed, the preferred providers have agreed to accept this payment as payment in full. So if you end up needing to go to a nurse, if you go to Levendale or Broadmead or one of these, they will accept this payment as payment in full. Susquehanna, see, whatever. This is 80%. And Patapsco, yeah, I'm telling you, like this Chesapeake, Susquehanna, I didn't come up with these, okay? These are really more for, as it says, a supplement to people who have an existing long-term care insurance policy. They all include the initial services, which begin immediately, and payments are made when the long-term care services are needed, and all benefits and payments last for a lifetime. There's no cap. There's no 90-day waiting period. There's no 5-year limit on benefits. If you're in, you're in. You need services, you get them, and it lasts a lifetime. Payment options, pay it lump sum. There's a discount. You can pay it over 3 years, which can be advantageous from a tax perspective. Flex pay, you can pay more up front and less every month, or the other way around. Try to be as flexible as possible. All right, this is for the 80%, the $288 a day for a 75-year-old. The entrance fee is $78,795, and the monthly fee is $592. This is for somebody who is 75. Try and get long-term care insurance at 75. Go ahead, I dare you. This is something that can be done, and this is what it costs. Is it inexpensive? No. You're not, but it's certainly within the realm of affordability for many people. This is the various ways you can alter those fees. This different installment payments or whatever else. Try to make this as affordable as possible. No, I'm not going to claim it's inexpensive, but you are freeing yourself from the Medicaid system, from having to leave your home, your community, your friends, your family. It does all that. And let's take a look at this from the perspective of asset protection. And, let's talk about Ann here. All right, Ann. She joins when she's 70. She gets the full option entrance fee was $79,310, monthly fee $695. She takes advantage of the care coordinator and initial services from day one. At 8 years later, she begins to need more services in her home due to declining mobility. And believe me, I know what that's like. Care coordinator arranges and oversees home care services through the vendors that we have contracts with. She never sees a bill for this because she's covered through her membership. When she's 80, she makes the decision that she needs to go to assisted living. She makes the move with the help of her care coordinator. She's in there for 3 years until she passes. This is what it compares. You can look at this and see where it comes out. And the blue line is the secure care program and what the costs are. Okay? It's like much lower than the other two? Okay. That's the big important part here? Okay. Now this is a different program. This is for people who have, adequate long-term care insurance policies. This is just a care coordination only. This is what you're buying, this is what you're getting. You're getting relief from the need to do any kind of care arrangement, negotiating when you're sick and can't do it. All right? Benefits is 4 hours a month of care coordination, includes assessments, care plans, advocacy. Well, you can read. The nurse emergency response, the Dorvey membership, access to the Greenwald program. And it's ideal for those who may not qualify medically. So this doesn't really even have a medical eligibility component. And it works really well with people who already have long-term care insurance. $7,500 a month, $7,500 entrance fee, $235 a month. So who joins? Who is getting into this? We've just really only started a year and a half ago, and it's a slow start, but we're building up. It's individuals who want to, I'm shocked to say, preserve assets, maintain control, peace of mind and planning ahead, find value in a personal care coordinator, not burden the family members, and you want access to quality services. How does it work with the long-term care insurance? I'm just curious, how many people here have some kind of long-term care insurance? Okay, take a look at this, all right? It's proactive, no waiting period, covers short-term, long-term care coordination. Initial services are provided. Long-term care insurance has that frequently has a 90-day elimination period. This doesn't. It's got lots of claims and paperwork, limited coverage. This doesn't. Okay. So, Leading Age took a look at how these continuing care at home programs are working nationally. How many people end up in nursing homes? Less than 1%. How many end up in assisted living or memory care? 1.2. 10% received home care services. Hospital readmissions are almost half. I mean, this program works. It's worked in other places. It's going to work here. And right now, we're kind of the only one around. It's got inflation protection. Cost of care goes up with inflation, obviously, and there are annual adjustments based on our fiscal year. Last year, it went up to 3%. Got pretty good control over the expenses. It's regulated by the Maryland Department of Aging. For those of you interested in looking for the legal context, It's in the Human Services article, the annotated code. It's in Comar 320202, and there are operating capital and contract reserves that are required. We have to submit reports several times a year, quarterly, and annual renewals. I mean, this is a very well-regulated program. If you're interested in learning more about it, I would suggest that you contact the Wesley Secure Care Program. They will come to your home, your office, anywhere you want, believe me. Fill out the application, see if you qualify. It's a medical and financial question. This is everything I've told you in more detail. And thank you. Questions? No, I mean, wait, you can blow it all you want. But I want to answer any questions you may have first. Yes?
So what you've done is basically take the concept of a life insurance fraternal benefit society and apply it to long-term care insurance.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
We're going to get a microphone, Jason.
Okay.
So what you've done is basically taken the fraternal benefit society model for life insurance.
To some extent.
Columbus, Aid Association for Lutherans, and applied to long-term care insurance.
To some extent, yes. I mean, I think it's sort of a hybrid in the sense that you're getting pretty much the same benefits that you would out of a continuing care retirement community. The long-term care insurance has, limitations on how long before you can get benefits, how long the benefits will be provided, a limit on the daily. There are no limits here. You don't have to wait. Once you're in, day one, you need services, you get them. There's no 90-day elimination period. There's no cap on the amount of services. In terms of, with the preferred providers, the payment from this program is payment in full. There are no other charges. So, yes, I mean, it's along those lines, sure. I mean, this is a nonprofit. This is not designed to generate profit. It's designed to cover expenses. And that's how the costs are calculated. We have an actuary. The president of the board is one of the two actuaries for continuing care in the country. Yeah.
So the providers, when they go outside of their home and you place them in assisted living or nursing home, they're going to take what fee? Only the monthly fee the person was paying?
Yes.
Well, they would
No, not the monthly fee the person pays. The benefit amount. If they're in the Chesapeake program, which right now pays $361 a day, they have the preferred providers we have contracts with have agreed to accept $361 a day as payment in full. Yeah. Those are now you don't have to use it there. You can go anywhere you want, in which case they'll pay $361 a day, and if there are additional charges, you pay them. But if you stay within the preferred providers we have contracts with, they will accept that payment as payment in full.
So your claims rate is 10% now, right?
I didn't catch that.
Your claims rate is 10% now, right? 10% of your people.
That's the projection based on the national
So in
number.
20 or 25 years, it'll be 70%?
Something like that.
And you won't go bankrupt doing that?
That's what the actuary says. That's where all the numbers come from.
Can you repeat the question?
He's asking me the source of the numbers and of the program's liquidity. And based upon the actuarial statistics that we have, these numbers are correct. And it's not designed to generate profit. This is a nonprofit.
Next question, Alex.
Thank you. Was there anybody or anything that influenced you to look into both law school and the legal field for the first time? I mean, I'm autistic, and I've been wanting to look into both since youth.
Was there anything that... that's a good question. I was a history major in college. And in studying history, I came to believe that law was an appropriate vehicle for achieving change, and it could be directed, and it could be progressive, and it could make life better for people, and I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to do that. And I think that in my chosen area of practice of elder law, I have done that. And I'm very proud of some of the things I've accomplished. Thanks.
Excellent.
1 second.
Is there an age limit for entering this program?
No, there's no age limit for entering the program, but the entrance fee costs go up based on age. There is that, yes. Yeah, I mean, most people who get into these things nationally are in their early 70s. Continuing care retirement communities, it's closer to 80. This is a different market than the people who go to continuing care retirement communities. Somewhat less income, younger assets, income probably a little bit lower. It's not the same market, which is why we were able to do this with Greenwald, because they don't think it's the same market either.
How soon would you project that you'll add facilities in Howard County?
As soon as we can get people to sign contracts. We couldn't really start asking until we were authorized to do so, and that just happened 2 months ago. So I can tell you the executive director is in contact with a number of places. I'm not sure what the status of it is. I live in New Orleans, she's here.
Can you share again what services would be offered in the home specifically versus a CCRC? And the reason I'm asking that is a CCRC does offer a wide range of services. And I'm thinking in particular, let's say members might need occupational therapy, members might need physical therapy during their end-of-life journeys or after rehab, or they may need dermatological care or podiatry care, and many CCRCs offer that. But if you're needing OT or PT, let's say, and it really can't be offered fully in the home because they need equipment, how does that work under your program?
Medical transportation to facilities to receive those services are covered. But we have contracts with providers of all that. The Elizabeth Cooney agency, whose president is vice president of our board, provides all those services. In fact, one of the things that happens on joining is an OT comes to the house to assess what needs to be done in the home to make it safe. It's actually the very first service you get is an OT assessment of your own home to avoid everything, from scatter rugs that are a prescription for disaster to anything else that could be modified to make your home safer. So yeah, it's all covered. Yeah.
You talked about a monthly fee.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that goes till the end of your life.
Yes.
And if there are two people, so a couple.
There's some discount for two.
I'm sorry?
There is a discount for two.
There's a discount, but one presumably dies before the other, and
Right.
then does the fee change?
Yeah, it goes to one.
It goes to one. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for this presentation. I'm just curious, obviously Elville and Associates is familiar with this since you're part of this session today. Are other legal firms and financial firms in the state familiar with this as well to direct others to this potential program?
We've been doing programs with the bar for a couple of years since we first started. So I would hope that people are aware of it, the other lawyers are aware of it. We've done programs with the Elder Law Section, Lunch and Learns at the annual bar meeting. I would hope, yeah. I mean, if not, then I got something to say to our executive director. So I hope so, yeah. Anybody else?
I have 3 questions. One is, how many members do you currently have?
26.
Okay. How many of those have benefits at this time?
Are receiving benefits at this
Yeah.
time? A couple of them have received benefits after a hospitalization.
Okay, so it's a brand new program.
Yeah, just started.
Okay. And my last question is most important. What happens if you join as a member and you do not have dementia at the time that you join, and then you develop dementia? Does that impact the benefits that you'll receive?
Yeah, you'll receive them sooner.
some CRCC contracts have tax advantages, income tax advantages. What's the situation?
Similar. You get a letter at the end of the year based on, the actuary sends out a letter saying X% of your fees this year were tax deductible medical expenses. Yeah, in many instances you can pay us instead of Uncle Sam. I like that.
I have two questions for you. One is, what happens to the entrance fee upon your death, or if you decide to leave the program? And especially, given that less than 10% of people actually ever are projected to require admission to long-term care, and even less, like what was it, 1.2% that needed...
Into nursing homes and assisted living, yeah.
Memory care.
No, I'll answer your question first. We have two contract models. One is an amortization over a 50-month period of the entrance fee. So if you were in it for a year and decided to leave, you would get back 76% of your entrance fee. The other is a 50% refundable. So at the end, whenever you pass away, if it's more than 4 years away, 50% of what you paid as an entrance fee comes back to your named beneficiary.
Gotcha. And then the second question is, who determines that you need services? Does the member say, I need X, Y, and Z service at this time? Or does the group, is it eligibility based on the organization's criteria?
Well, it's the organization's criteria. At this point, it's needing assistance. The trigger is 1 ADL, activity of daily living. The medical director, the care coordinator are all involved in determining what services you need and when.
Gotcha.
But it's not a question of managing. This is not care management. This is care coordinating. There's no effort here to limit services. It's only to identify the ones that you need. This is not a managed care situation. Very much not. I want to emphasize that. This is not managed care. This is care coordination. This is identifying the services you need and providing them.
Let me ask you one more thing. Where are you with the hospital at home model for care and this? Is this a different way of presenting a hospital at home model?
Well, this is a wider range of services, I think. I mean, this starts with needing assistance with one activity of daily living, as opposed to a hospitalization requirement, which is a far stricter level of care, higher level of care.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You indicated transition to assisted living. If your health deteriorates, you need palliative or hospice, does this cover that?
Oh yeah, that's
in
all.
In that facility, or would it cover it at home?
Either way, honestly.
Okay.
The vast majority of people don't want to go anywhere. They want to stay home. And that's what this is really designed to happen, is the ability to stay home, whatever. People say, I want to die in my own bed. Well, yeah.
How soon can we see this program expanding into the southern Maryland counties?
Southern Maryland, that's probably about 2 years away. It took us 2 years to get to all of central Maryland and the Eastern Shore. I think it's going to be faster. This administration is more interested in seeing this expand than other ones. But it's a question of not just wanting to be there, but of finding the facilities and people to contract with. Southern Maryland, you mean like Charles County and St. Mary's and stuff? I would guess, yeah, at least a year, probably maybe 2. But the whole Southern Maryland, DC area is next, I can tell you.
My question is, if you have an OT evaluation of your home and then you move, do you get a new evaluation?
Sure, that's yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also when you said portable, I'm assuming you mean you need to move to a different state where there is this Wesley Secure Care.
There is a national organization of these programs, and we would hope to be able to coordinate with one wherever you move to. But we can certainly also arrange to pay for services anywhere too.
If you've gone to the exception of being earlier than 80 and gone to a CCRC, do you have a program that will coordinate care in a independent living part of a CCRC?
Yeah, a type C CCRC would be an appropriate place to have something like this. The contract also provides, something not in here, but if at some point you elect to go to a CCRC, as long as it's a type A CCRC, an all-inclusive care plan facility, we'll return 90% of the entrance fee to help pay for it.
Okay, so my question is, if I'm going to buy long-term care insurance, because I'm just a baby at 65, why would I go with your services over long-term care insurance? Do you offer a wider variety of services? Why would I pick you over just buying regular long-term care?
No elimination period, no cap on daily benefits, no cap on how many years. I mean, it's different. I think it's better. It's easier to get into in terms of medical eligibility. Like I said, most policies have an elimination period before they'll pay for anything. They have a per diem cap on what they'll pay. They have a limit on how many years they'll pay. This doesn't.
Also, I just got my nurse refresher course taken after 20 years of being out. If I work for you, would I get a discount? Part-time, just part-time.
Talk to Amanda. That's all I can tell you. Board members are not involved in operational details. How's that for a good answer, right?
Question in the back. I'm getting my steps in.
To start the ball rolling, who would you contact?
You want to contact Amanda Young in the Secure Care office. It's in Towson. I thought there was a slide for that, but I guess I didn't. Her name's Amanda Young. You go online, you can find it's on. You can look at the website. You can probably, if you want, I'll look it up right now. Where are you, Amanda? $410-324-2400. 410-324-2400 is the office number. Just whatever. I have some mastery of PowerPoint, but I by no means complete.
Jason, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. Steve here. And by the way, thank you for opening our eyes to this today. It's amazing. As the person who has done the most in Maryland of anyone for the home and community options waiver, and you said there's 22,000 people still on the waiting list at any given time. Yeah, can you give us an update on that? And to the best, and even though you're in Louisiana, you were the big advocate for this. And why is this thing still at 22,000? And what is the hope that it won't be?
I wish I could give you a good answer. I can't. I can give you some bad answers. All right. In fact, as I was telling you, I work with Elena, and Elena's the chair of the NAILA chapter, and I've been in on a number of Zoom meetings with the deputy secretary for Medicaid. The 22,000. The good news is it's 3,000 less than it was a year ago. It was 25,000. I honestly believe that the secret of the program from Maryland's perspective is to keep you on the waiting list longer than your life expectancy. And in that, I think they're pretty much successful. What Steve was referring to is I was one of the folks who wrote the statute 25 years ago that resulted in the Maryland Medicaid Home and Community-Based Options Waiver Program. And within a couple of years, it had about 4,000 people on it. And you know how many people are getting benefits today, 21 years later? About 4,000 people, with 22,000 on the waiting list. To say that I am unhappy, frustrated, disillusioned, that would be an understatement. It's also one of the reasons why I worked on this program, to be able to avoid having to spend down on a program that has a wait list of years longer than you're likely to live. And this is a program that is intended to address that. The Maryland Home and Community-Based Options Waiver, there's a number of cases going on challenging various aspects of it in terms of how it implements or doesn't implement the protection from spousal impoverishment rules, when it does the snapshot of assets for asset protection. I would suggest to you that Maryland is not in strict compliance with the federal requirements, nor its own statute, and the litigation will not end. If I sound a little bitter and angry, it's because I am. This is something I've been working on for 25 years. And they don't get it. It is, people want to be served at home. It is usually less expensive to be served at home. The state doesn't get it, okay? They just think it's more money instead of money that's saved. Even when they had a study done by their people, the Hilltop Institute at UMBC, did a study that showed that, yeah, you'll save money here, serve more people, and cost less. And this was a study they initiated as a result of the legislature. And it said exactly what we thought it would say. What it said in many other states. And they still are resistant, to put it mildly. I don't get it. Anybody else? Yes.
Do you have any idea how much money they cost?
Well, it's been a while since I looked at those numbers. But what it does is you get a bump up and then a significant decrease over time. It's the fact that they only use one-year budgets, which shows an increase in 1 year and not the decrease over 10, is where you really end up with the budgetary problems that they constantly point to, which is why they won't do it. Because it's going to cost more next year. But 10 years from now, it's going to cost less. Well, we don't care about 10 years from now. We're in a 4-year administration. We're only looking at next year. It's the short-sightedness that results in the failure of the program. That's all I can tell. That's the only thing that makes sense. Okay, now how do you address that? Plan? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? Anyway, yes.
So my question was a little different. If you're already at an independent living part of a CCRC, do you have a plan that would apply until someone would be required to go to their part? So in-home services at independent living.
Yeah, in fact, I think there's one, maybe two current members that are in Type C retirement communities that have bought into this program. Yes.
Jacqueline?
Whoever. Hang on.
You mentioned that the CCRC market is one, and that you believe the Wesley Secure Care program will serve a different market.
Yes.
Can you give some definitions of how you're defining those markets and the
Age,
ranges?
income, and assets.
And do you
And
have...
also the desire to stay at home, the unwillingness to move.
And do you have a ballpark on the income ranges for CCRC and for Wesley Secure Care, so that your
Well, I can give you an answer.
potential members have a feel for your marketplace?
Well, in addition to serving on the Wesley board, I'm also on the Broadmead board. I can tell you that the average asset on entrance at Broadmead is a bit over $2 million, and for an individual income over $100,000. For this program, the assets are what they're looking for are assets in the upper $100,000 range, like $700, $800, $900, including the house, and income of in excess of $75,000. So it's a distinctly lower income asset, and they're younger. Average age at entry at Broadmead is roughly 80. Average age at entry into these programs nationally is about 71. So yeah, they are distinctly different markets. It took some convincing to Edenwald that we were not a competitor, but we would complement each other. They have a tremendous waiting list. This is something that people on their waiting list can do, to the extent that they're couples, and what happens is couples stay home, one of them dies, the other one says, I'm rambling around this big house, I want to get out of it, I want to go to a CCRC. There is the ability to return 90% of the entrance fee if they're going to a type A CCRC. So there is some, we're attempted to integrate, but it is a distinctly different market.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Any last questions for Jason Frank?
Okay. All right then. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, we are going to take a 10-minute break. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Alex Seleznev, MBA, Certified Financial Planner and Chartered Financial Analyst, is the founder and president of Capital Squared Financial. The creation of CSF is the pinnacle of his vision to deliver a boutique-style experience that is laser-focused on client service and where clients' unique goals are its mission. Alex's focus is on helping clients with tax-efficient retirement planning and investment management. He helps clients assess their overall retirement preparedness, design an actionable and easy-to-understand plan to achieve their goals, and develop an investment strategy that matches their specific needs and preferences. As a fee-only fiduciary, always important, Alex's sole professional objective is to guide his clients to achieve financial independence and realize their life goals. In 2022, Alex was selected as the top financial professional by Bethesda Magazine in the wealth management category. He is frequently quoted by financial publications such as Kiplinger, AARP, and Financial Advisor Magazine. And Alex offered an outstanding presentation at our Spring Client Care Program event about planning for college and 529 plans, and it's really a pleasure to have you back, Alex. So come on up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Here's your clicker.
All right, thank you. Again, thank you, Jeff, and thanks, Steve, for organizing such an amazing event. Again, this is the second time I'm doing this, and this is awesome. And of course, thanks so much for attending on such a beautiful November day. There's clearly a lot of things that you could be doing, but you chose to be here, so I very much appreciate that. So Jeff, of course, just introduced me, but again, it's interesting to actually see a couple of familiar faces here. But of course, for those who haven't met me yet, again, Alex Seleznev, I'm the founder and president of Capital Squared Financial. So we're a retirement planning firm. And what I really mean by saying that, we work exclusively with people who are thinking about transitioning or already in retirement. That is literally all we do. The average age of our clients is 64. It was actually 63 last year. Now it's 64, so people are aging a little bit. And there's really two unique things, I would say, about our firm. The first one is we're very much tax proactive. So that's usually one of the first questions I like to ask when people reach out to us. And this is not meant to be a tricky question. Well, what's going to be your largest expense in retirement? Well, in the context of our, seminar today, most people would say medical expenses, which is true, but that's usually later in life. When someone first retires in their 60s or maybe 70s, usually it's taxes. That is really your largest expense. In terms of our investment strategy, and my business partner, Asa De Silva, is here, has over 25 years managing actually multi-billion-dollar hedge funds. We create so-called fortress financial plans for our clients to make sure that they actually do not run out of money in retirement. And of course, other questions in terms of Social Security, that is also part of our expertise. A disclaimer again for any of you who ever attended any investment webinars or seminars, I have to read this to you. Anything that we're about to discuss today should not be considered any kind of financial advice. This is entirely for educational and informational purposes only. If you decide to implement any of the strategies that we discussed today, we strongly recommend that you do your own due diligence or you contact a qualified professional. So again, I have to make this disclosure. So in terms of our seminar today, of course, focusing on Social Security, and I'll tell you, we will kind of skip on the basics here. There's just one slide on that, really, because I want to mostly focus on how you maximize your benefits and avoid mistakes. But again, in terms of the basics, one of the top questions I get from new clients, sometimes from our existing clients, and certainly when I do seminars like this, well, will the so-called Social Security Trust Fund run out of money? And perhaps that's a concern for many of you. So in terms of the latest update, as of March of this year, we had almost 2.8 trillion in reserves, and assuming nothing changes, the so-called trust fund will run out of money by 2035. Well, what does that mean in practice? In practice, that means that for those who are receiving the benefits at the time, only essentially 83% of the benefits would be covered by the tax revenues at the time. So there's much more to this, but that's really the basics behind it. Now, there are lots of potential solutions out there, lots of them actually. I'll just point out 3 of them, and perhaps the first one would be the most appropriate, I'll just put it that way. The idea of increasing someone's retirement age. Again, we'll talk about that in detail. It's currently 67, but if you look at the numbers, it's actually relatively easy to solve the problem if you increase it for someone like myself. So, people are living longer at this point, so perhaps that's one of the solutions. Increasing the Social Security taxes, and what I'm referring to, perhaps some of you are aware, so-called FICA taxes, what your employer pays on your behalf and what you have to pay from your wages. That is not likely to be the most, acceptable option, but that's one of the solutions. In terms of increasing the taxable portion of the benefits, and the president-elect actually talked about doing the opposite a month ago at this point. But that's one of the solutions, even though over the past number of years, even though the benefit is still taxable at the federal level, up to 85%, most states do not tax Social Security benefits. Only 10 of them actually do. Maryland, DC, and Virginia are not those states. So what does all of this mean to you? Okay, when I get this question. So if you're close to your retirement age, let's say you're in your 60s, mid-60s, or perhaps you're already claiming the benefits, you really shouldn't worry about this. I'll just put it bluntly like this. I'm not talking about the cost of living adjustments. That's a separate discussion, exactly how they're going to implement potential changes. But it's not likely to be to say the least, politically beneficial option to really impact, to change the benefits for those of them who are receiving them. Now, in terms of younger generations, again, perhaps someone like myself, and we do have some clients, they're usually the children of our clients who are in their 40s or 50s, one option is to plan for your retirement without it, just to kind of see what the difference would look like. So again, the rest of the seminar is really about maximizing your benefits. So of course, one of the things you really need to know is when to apply for the benefits, and there are a variety of things to consider. Now, I'll tell you up front, there are situations when people reach out to us, and let's say it's a single person, a relatively straightforward situation. It's really not all that complex. I'll just say this. It's really not. You ask a couple of questions, you look at their financial plan, and you can come up with the most optimal choice for them. It becomes much more complex when you work with couples, and specifically when you're trying to accomplish different things. Like one of the strategies I'll just touch on today a little bit, so-called multi-year Roth conversions, when you really trying to minimize someone's taxes. So Social Security planning is important then. Financial need. Do you actually need the money? Exactly when will you need the money? Life expectancy. One of the top considerations here. We'll talk about the average in just a moment. Of course, your health condition, and in some situations it's somewhat uncomfortable to talk about that. Do you have a history of longevity in your family? That is usually one of the first questions I would ask, especially when we work with younger clients, those in their 60s usually, because it's kind of hard to tell exactly what their life expectancy would look like. You need to understand the advantages of delayed claiming. We'll have a separate slide and we'll actually dig in details today. For spouses, which is where we actually tend to spend more time, you need to understand the advantages or exactly how that works. Now, in terms of long-term care needs, I actually decided to remove a couple of slides. It's kind of like a separate subject. We're not going to touch on that today, but again, when you're making those decisions, Social Security is certainly one of the variables. So, a couple of numbers here, again, not meant to be overwhelming. So this is per the Social Security life expectancy table. This is still the 2021 version. They haven't updated it yet. So for an average 65-year-old, a male, the life expectancy is 84. For an average 65-year-old female, it's 87. Now, if you look at the right of this table, you'll notice that it actually goes up. This is not a typo. This is not a mistake. So at least statistically speaking, the older you are, the longer you're expected to live. Now, one of the comments, I used to not really make this comment, but I kind of started doing that. So with statistics like this, you have to be careful, because when people look at the numbers, like 84, somehow, some way, most people assume that they're going to go beyond that point, like my father, who passed away at the age of 70, actually. So, but the reality of the situation is, half of the population, who is 65 years old today, they're not going to make it to 84. This is, of course, a separate conversation in terms of your overall financial plan and your spending plan specifically, but I started pointing that out. In terms of your full retirement age, this is something I actually suggest you simply remember. So for those who were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67, and we'll talk about the importance of that in just a moment. For those who were born between 1943 and 1959, essentially, it's anywhere between 66 and 66 and 10 months. In our seminar today, I'll mostly refer to it as 67, just to keep it simple. So, again, understanding when to apply. So a couple of things here. Under normal circumstances, so when you apply for the benefits under your own account, the earliest age is 62. Now, what's important here is if you decide to take the benefits at that age, they'll be permanently reduced when compared to the benefits at your full retirement age, and that reduction can be up to 30%. And I don't think it's news to you necessarily, but I just wanted to point that out. Now, once you reach your FRA, which is 67, you have a choice. You can collect the benefits then, or you can delay them all the way to age 70, and it makes really no sense to delay any longer. Your benefits would increase by 8% each year, regardless if you work or not. And this is one of those things that some people actually misunderstand. It's like, okay, I'm going to continue working, perhaps my benefits will go up. It's possible, but the way it works is based on the 35 years of your earnings, essentially. For most people, that is not going to be the case. So if the only reason you're working beyond age 67 is to increase your Social Security benefits, that is not likely to be all that beneficial. Again, I want to repeat myself. If you stop working and then you just collect the benefits at age 70, essentially, they'll automatically increase by 8%. One of the questions I get, specifically again from our younger clients, I just turned 62, I enjoy what I do, perhaps I'll work part-time, doesn't make sense for me to collect the benefits. Well, it's possible, we need to look into that, but before we do that, we need to understand how the so-called earnings test applies. So essentially the way it works, up until you reach your 67th birthday, there's maybe we can call it a penalty essentially. So if you continue working, and let's say you have a decent income, I'll just put it that way, your benefits would be reduced by $1 for every $2 in earned income in excess of $22,000. So say differently, if you're going to work beyond age 62, and let's say you're earning more than $60,000 a year, you shouldn't be applying for Social Security benefits. That's pretty much as simple as that. Now, I've underlined here earned income, so that's wages, self-employed, if you have any partnership income. That does not include dividends, capital gains, or essentially passive income. So that's a different story here. Break-even analysis, one of the top questions, right? People reach out, okay, I'm thinking about my Social Security, exactly when should I apply so that I maximize my lifetime benefits? It can be a relatively straightforward analysis, but in some cases actually it can be rather complex. So what you're looking at here, this is a hypothetical. This is directly from the Social Security website. I'll tell you up front, we do our work very differently. It's much more detailed than this because we have to personalize it for every client. The assumption here is that the person here would receive the maximum possible benefit at each age. So 62, 67, and 70. Of course, the benefits increase annually for inflation, but they're not adjusting for taxes. Which, by the way, I can tell you up front, it's a big mistake, because once you start adjusting for taxes, the outcome of this decision could be dramatically different in some cases. But still, if we look at the hypothetical here, if you're 62 years old and you're trying to decide should you collect the benefits now or at 67, and if you believe that you're going to live beyond age 76, well, perhaps you should delay them to age 67. I'm going to skip the middle option here because it's very uncommon for people to compare 62 and 70, but the third option here, 67 versus 70, essentially it's age 80. So if you believe that you're going to live beyond age 80, all else being equal, you should consider collecting your benefits at 70 to again maximize the present value of your benefit. Okay, in terms of the strategies, and this is really a short version, again I had to exclude a couple of slides here. So age 62, again, the earliest that you can collect the benefits under your own account, and the maximum benefit, by the way, in 2024 is $2,700 essentially, which is not a small amount. I'll tell you in practice, at least for our clients, it's rarely the case that someone actually plans to collect the benefits that early, but there's certainly some reasons behind that. Perhaps you have immediate cash needs. You want to travel more, you want to enjoy your retirement. Let's say you have limited other resources, you don't necessarily want to deplete your portfolio, or perhaps most of it is in tax advantageous accounts, so you don't want to pay taxes when you take the funds out. So that's one of the decisions for you to at least consider. In practice, again, what usually happens, you plan for people to collect them later in life, but then life happens. All of a sudden, they discover that they have some kind of condition. Their life expectancy is now shorter, so that's one of the decisions to revisit. Perhaps you should be collecting them sooner now. Your full retirement age, or FRA, again, it's 66, but for most people it's 67. The maximum benefit this year is $3,800, so it keeps going up, up, and up. It just happens that it's the most optimal choice for most people. Doesn't mean for everyone necessarily. One of the reasons behind that is specifically for those of you who want to continue working, there's no longer any penalty for earned income. So the benefit is still taxable depending on other income sources that you have, but there's no penalty. In terms of the life expectancy, that's why it's 67. Essentially, you don't have to make any guesses. So it assumes that your life expectancy is average. Why would you want to wait to age 70, so-called late commencement age? And it's amazing, actually, I've done this for a number of years. Perhaps when I do this seminar next year, it's actually going to be at $5,000 a month. So it's a pretty significant benefit from that perspective. Well, besides the fact that, again, this is the max you will get, one of the reasons behind that very common recommendation that comes from us is if you have a multi-year tax minimization plan that includes multi-year Roth conversions, as an example, that's when you would really want to defer as much income as possible into the future. And of course, Social Security is part of that. The second point here can be a bit, requires a little bit of an explanation. Let's say you have a conservative investment portfolio. You're just not comfortable with the markets. You want to keep most of it in more liquid, fixed income type of investments. And let's say it's expected to earn 5% in the long run. I'll just keep it simple. So if you actually draw from your portfolio, the opportunity cost of that is 5%. So that is your projected rate of return. If you wait to collect your benefits, your Social Security benefits at age 70, again, as I mentioned earlier, they automatically increase by 8%. So you're actually better off from that perspective. And this works particularly well, by the way, for those of our clients who have like taxable accounts, brokerage accounts, meaning that they don't pay that much in taxes on the distributions. Of course, if you have other sources of income, pension, you continue to work, something else, you just don't need the money. Say this is somewhat obvious, but I just wanted to make sure it's there. And of course, from our perspective, one of the assumptions, in some sense, we must make here is that your life expectancy is above average. Because if someone comes to us and again says, I have a chronic condition here, I may look good, but again, my parents lived to their late 70s, and that's pretty much it. So we have to make that assumption. Now, one of the things that you don't see on the slide, and there's a reason why I didn't put it there, so anytime you make a decision to wait, let's say you're 67 today and you're waiting, realize that you're leaving almost $140,000 on the table in uncollected benefits. And that's if you're at the max. Of course, that figure would be lower if your benefit is lower than that. And there's something to be said about that. Again, when we do this for a single person, it's usually pretty straightforward. Okay, how are you going to replace that from your portfolio? You're going to continue working, any other option. It's very different, slightly more complex when we work with couples, which we'll discuss in just a moment. So really switching gears here. This is almost like an entirely different story here. So claiming strategies for married couples. Again, everything I discussed up until this point pretty much applied to single people when we're analyzing it over someone's single life. There will be two examples here, and I will discuss them in as much detail as possible. But please remember this. If you just don't recall anything I'm about to say, if you're married and you decide, what claimant strategy is the most appropriate for you, applying for Social Security benefits at the same age as your spouse is frequently not the best decision, financially speaking, by the way, just to confirm. Meaning that if you and your spouse are thinking about collecting at 67, think again. Perhaps there's a different choice that will be better for you. So here's our first example, and of course this is for illustration purposes only. We assume that our spouses will receive the maximum possible benefit. We're not tax affecting it, because once you include taxes, the outcome can be dramatically different from what I'm about to discuss here. So her husband is 67, his life expectancy is 84. The wife is younger, she is 60, and her life expectancy is longer. So, the assumption in this projection is that the wife is going to outlive her husband by 10 years. So, somewhat of a standard setup, I'll put it that way. So, if both of them collect the benefits at 67, so that's the chart or the graph in the bottom left. So, meaning the husband collects them now, and then the wife essentially waits for 7 years to collect the benefits. The present value as of today is $1,389, by the way, which is rather significant. I'll just put it that way. So that's that. Perhaps that's our starting point. Can we do better than that? can we come up with a plan that would improve their situation? Well, what if the wife collects the benefits 2 years from now, the age of 62, again, the earliest she can collect the benefits, and then the husband begins to collect them now. In this scenario, again, the present value is now at $1,443,000, which is, of course, better than the previous option. Well, why is that the case? There's two reasons behind it. First of all, the wife in this example is collecting the benefits sooner for 2 additional years, but the benefits are lower. What is more important here, which is a point I really like to stress, since the wife is expected to outlive her husband by 10 years, she's going to inherit his benefit, which is larger than her own because she's collecting the benefits sooner. So that creates this so-called hedging scenario. I like to refer to it as such. Now, in terms of scenario C, which I will say is not the most common in terms of the practical application for this, but still, if the wife collects the benefits 2 years from now and then the husband defers to age 70, so he collects them 3 years down the road, the present value of this option is now $1,563,000, which is, again, significantly higher than the first option. The reasons are the same. The wife is collecting sooner, but then at some point in the future, she is going to inherit a much larger benefit. When we talk about the basics, I usually include it there, but just so we're clear, you can never receive 2 benefits. It's either your own or, if you inherit essentially your spouse's, just so we're clear. Okay, the second example here may appear to be even more straightforward, but perhaps not so much. So here, our husband and wife are exactly the same age. Both are 67 years old as of today. Same assumption, the wife is expected to outlive her husband by 10 years. So if both of them decide to collect the benefits today, well, in this case, the present value is $1,588,000. In scenario B, you know what I'm about to tell you essentially. Again, the wife collects them now, and then the husband at age 70. Perhaps as expected, this now increases the lifetime benefits for the family to $1,150,000. Can we do even better than that? Okay, well, in scenario C, both of them wait to age 70 to collect the maximum possible benefit for each of them, so the present value is $1,945,000. So if you just look at the graphs, it would be somewhat logical to assume they should just go with scenario C because it maximizes their benefit. Well, not so quickly, because what I mentioned earlier, the difference between scenarios B and C is $95,000, which is, significant sum, but that's over a very long time period. So we're really talking long term here. However, if the wife in this case waits to collect her benefits at age 70, she's essentially leaving $137,000 on the table. That's important. I like to point that out because we all like to plan for the future, 20, sometimes 30 years down the road, but in terms of the immediate benefits or so-called opportunity cost, people should at the very least be aware of that. A couple of frequently asked questions. We actually have two of our clients, they decided to retire in Mexico. Can I still receive Social Security benefits if I live outside of the U.S.? Absolutely. No issues whatsoever. What happens to my Social Security benefits when I die? Well, if you have a spouse, and if your benefit is higher than his or her own, then you'd essentially switch. The same applies to your survivor, to the survivor benefit, specifically to the children, but there's no lump sum benefit. If you plan to work until age 70, is that the point where you must take Social Security? Yes. And every so often it does happen. People are so engaged in their work, essentially, they forget to apply, and that's perfectly fine. They'll actually pay in retrospect, but there's no reason to wait beyond age 70. And then finally, how Social Security taxed for state income tax purposes, I touched on that. At this point, only 10 states tax the benefits. At the federal level, it's up to 85%. Again, Maryland, Virginia, and DC do not tax Social Security benefits. I don't know how much time we have for questions, probably none.
A couple questions. Anybody have questions? I'll get my steps in again. And I will mention, as I'm walking, this presentation, all the slides today will be available and sent to you by me, as well as the recording. I've heard there have been some questions about that, so my apologies.
Whoops, it moves.
Okay, I have a couple. The first one is there a calculator online where you can put these various scenarios in and figure out should I wait till 70, 65, whatever?
Yes, there's a calculator online. I don't remember the website. Please be careful. None of the calculators that I've discovered myself tax impact the calculations. It becomes much more complex. See, in terms of Social Security decisions, it should never be made by itself. It's always part of your overall financial plan. But if you're just looking in terms of maximizing it on its own, yeah, there are plenty of calculators.
There is. And also, do you have like a one-time fee, like if I want to sit down with you to do this, or?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to stick around after, yes. Short answer is yes.
And my last question, real quick, that $1,389,000, I guess I was in La La Land. Where did you get that from? Like starting at the wife at 62 and the husband at 67?
It's exactly what that is. So this is
expectancy. So over that $1,389,000 you got from age 62 to the life expectancy.
correct. So in scenario A, I believe that's what you're referring to. It's from 62 to 87 for wife, from 67 to 84 for the husband, and then the present value. We use 5%, by the way, as a discount rate.
You have the same two numbers for age 70 for the husband in the second and third.
Well, we're comparing. I'm sorry. This is the orange here is scenario A. So
they're combined.
it's the same. It's to compare.
I see. I just
Yeah.
figured it out.
Yes, please. That's certainly one of the options. Yeah, we talk about that too. Again, back. So the question is, what are your thoughts on collecting the benefits earlier and investing? Right? It's a little bit of a, I'm going to put it this way, it's a little bit of a speculative question, I'll put it that way. If you look at the market performance over the past 26 months, and you really should not be looking at it this way, then perhaps it does make sense to collect the benefits earlier and simply invest. I talk about this, I'm just not a big fan of that decision, but it's a discussion point.
If you have an adult child who is collecting SSI due to a disability, how is their benefit package impacted by their parent once their parent begins to collect their own Social Security, and then by their parent's death?
Okay, so you're talking about
an adult child. Let's say it's my adult child who currently collects disability through SSI.
Yeah, so
if I retire and begin to collect my own Social Security benefits, does that impact his?
No.
Not at all. And then
not at all.
If I pass away, is his disability income impacted?
Just disability and survivor benefit, the disability is not impacted in any way. The survivor benefit is to age 21 off the top of my head. Can talk more after this.
Okay, yeah, Alex is going to be around afterwards if you have specific questions about your own situation. Every situation is different, right, Alex?
Well, that's the message here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And also one more hand for Max Vanderbeek as he's packing up here. Anybody want to give him a hand, actually? No. Yeah, and everybody's going to be sticking around afterwards, I believe, if you have questions for them that we don't get to. We always try to offer a perfect presentation, and looks like we just missed here, because the 11 to 11:30 presentation by Allison Stanton is actually titled Aging in America and the Caregiver Epidemic, Challenges and Solutions, not Aging in Place. So there goes the perfect presentation, everybody. We'll try next year. But it's my pleasure to introduce Allison Stanton. She's the owner and care manager of Stanton Aging Solutions. She has a degree in medical social work with her entire career focused on the elderly and their families and the life transitions they go through. Allison has been practicing for over 25 years and is passionate about what she does, always ensuring that her clients have a voice. Allison guides older adults and their families through the healthcare system, linking their resources, developing a plan of care, and finding solutions that meet their needs. She also finds it very important to talk with people about advanced care planning, what their wishes and philosophy are on future treatment, and end-of-life care when necessary. And she has extensive knowledge of resources and regulations because of her real work experience in nursing homes, rehab centers, hospitals, assisted living facilities, and continuing care retirement communities. And also joining us is Marcy Koenig, who joined Allison in 2021 and has dedicated her entire professional career to serving older adults and their families, strongly advocating for their rights and well-being in a variety of settings. She became licensed as a nursing home administrator in Maryland in 2003, spending nearly 20 years as an executive director and administrator of several long-term care buildings throughout Maryland. Her true passion has always been directly supporting older adults and their families to achieve the highest quality of life possible through coaching, education, community connections, and therapeutic relationships. So Allison and Marcy, welcome, and come on up. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you. Do you have a second microphone?
Yes. Okay. On that. Maybe let's stand too close together.
Thank you. Why don't I come to the left? Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. I think you can hear me. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Elville and Associates, and the other speakers by being with us today. I'm super, super excited about this topic. We do also help people age in place, of course, but why we are here today is because the aging in America. The statistics are astounding. We almost cannot keep up with the work and the calls that we are getting. And what's really scary to me is I do not think this country is prepared for the numbers that we're at now, but what are they going to be in the next 10 years and then some? And we will discuss why that is going to be an issue and how it affects society, the economy, the entire healthcare system, and social programs that all of us are going to need and generations below us. So I hope that we all take something away from here and that we do better. You have the bio of us that we have been medical social workers. Marcy's also a licensed psychotherapist who treats the mental health challenges that people are going through when they are facing loss with aging, as well as helping their families. That's a very strong component. Also, as an LCSWC, she has done a lot of incapable certifications and has gone to court with that, and we have served as guardians for people throughout Maryland, as well as advanced healthcare POA, power of attorney for solo agers. So again, thank you for having us here. You have the clicker. Okay, so the first slide is the graying of America. And for the first time in U.S. history, older adults are projected to outnumber children by 2034, so 10 years from today. That is not that far away at all. I want to talk really quickly about the title, The Graying of America, because I'm sure you've heard this term, as well as the silver tsunami, the age wave, as well as others. And just to put in a little bit of humor here, if anyone knows British humor, they have a lot. We are not going to be calling ourselves this, okay? And I don't think we'll allow it in this country, but they refer to them as the Wrinklies. So, okay, so I have wrinkles. I'm in my 50s, right? But please don't call me the Wrinklies coming in the room. Okay, so I just thought that was funny. All right, so why is this happening? Americans are having fewer children. The baby boomers of the 50s and 60s, which those years were 46 through 64, by 2030, all boomers will be 65 or older. So we're not even at that cap yet. Like a lot of times we think, oh, the boomers are done, we hit that. No. We have 2030 to go, and they're still getting there. So just imagine when that full number hits. So with this, the summary is fewer children, longer life expectancies equals a country that is aging faster. Bless you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. Very, very happy to be here to talk about this very important topic. This particular slide gives some statistics. It may not be a surprise to any of you. It's always pretty staggering, though, for me to see these numbers, that how much the U.S. population age 65 and older is growing at a rate that we've never seen before. People are living longer. People are needing more care. As Allison mentioned, fewer people are having children than in the past. And I think an important statistic that I just want to highlight is that old group. The oldest of the old, the 85 and older, is the fastest growing population. Why is that important? I mean, it's probably pretty self-explanatory. That 85 and older group are the people who are either needing care now or will likely need care in the foreseeable future. It's also important to note because of the family caregivers. We're going to talk about family caregivers in a bit. These are individuals who maybe have living spouses, maybe 85, 90 years old or even greater, who are providing an overwhelming amount of the caregiving. Adult children might be helping out. If you have a 90-year-old mother, chances are you're in your 60s or 70s yourself, and you're providing care, in addition to managing your own medical issues, your own psychosocial issues, maybe your own children. So it is, it's pretty staggering to me to see that number, but it's very important to keep in mind.
That little one, 'cause I don't think they can see it.
That little one says between 2012 and 2050, the number will triple, increasing, is that 224%? I don't have
and that's 85
my glasses.
and older. 85 and older is going to
So
triple. I mean,
it's very significant. Wow, it's very significant. Okay. All right, so the impact on society is huge. Rising costs, obviously, we've talked about that, and shortage of workers, which Allison and I can speak to firsthand as we both have worked in multiple different healthcare settings. So the cost of caregiving is projected to be $367 billion, with a B, billion dollars annually. And in 2020, the average per person healthcare spending for people age 65 and older was 5 times higher than the spending on children. Medicare, you can see here the number of the deficit. It's responsible for $449 billion in deficit, which is a major driver of the federal deficit.
Some of the notes I wanted to say about this, going into nursing homes and hospitals, assisted livings, especially nursing homes and hospitals, and I'm kind of rescuing. I don't have a cape or anything on, but getting them out of these environments so they can age in place age in a less restrictive environment, and most importantly, to live with whatever time they have left with grace and dignity. But what's interesting with the Medicare dollars is a very large percentage of the highest spending is in the last 6 months of life. And that's some of the things that Steve spoke about and other people is what are your goals? And in order to reach those goals, you have to have a plan because we shouldn't be dying in hospitals when we want to die at home. We need our advanced care planning in place. We want our wishes. We need to talk to ourselves about what we want and we don't want. And we need to talk to our families about it and then get our affairs in order. That to me is scary and super, super sad that people are dying in hospitals when they don't want to be. The other costs, the impact on society with rising costs is long-term care facilities. A high percentage are not paying $16,000 a month private pay. Medicare only picks up the tab for a very short time, and they are getting stricter and stricter with that times, and they're issuing denials earlier to people. So when the Medicare ends, you can't pay private, and you qualify for long-term medical assistance. That's what people are going on. So that is going to hit into the deficit driver and Medicare cost as well. Also, caregivers are spending their own income helping for people that they are caring for. The sandwich generation, we all heard of it. We're younger, maybe, you know, we have kids, we have our own businesses. Now I have my parents I'm helping. Maybe they didn't save and do what they were supposed to. So now are we kicking in money to help them? So all of this is financially going to impact society.
Thank you, Allison. All very true. Going to the next slide. Yeah, there you go. Allison referenced Medicare. It's so common that our clients come to us and say, or we get a call that my loved one needs to go into a nursing home, but we have Medicare. No, Medicare, as many of you are probably aware, pays for a very short period of time in a nursing home under very strict guidelines, particularly when there is a skilled need following a hospitalization. Hospitals are not keeping people for the 3 nights. During COVID, that we had a waiver in place where individuals could get skilled care under their Medicare benefit in a nursing home without that 3-night qualifying stay in a hospital. That waiver has ended, and hospitals more and more are keeping people in what they call observation, sometimes for 3 nights, 4 nights, or even longer. It's staggering. So individuals who may otherwise be able to access their Medicare benefit, even for a short period of time, it's becoming more and more difficult to do so. So Medicare really does provide skilled care, but only for a brief period of time with very specific guidelines. And a lot of people don't understand that. Mm-hmm. They don't understand. I'm going to use my Medicare, and my Medicare will pay for my nursing home, or even assisted living, which certainly we know is not the case. So few people. I mean, I think it's changing, dare I say, it might be changing, and opportunities to speak in groups like this are certainly helping, but so few people plan. They just don't plan. They can be uncomfortable conversations. We don't want to talk about this. We don't know how to broach this with mom and dad. The pre-planning is critical. It always just brings us so much happiness when somebody contacts us well before there is a critical need. We just want to establish the relationship so that when we can start talking about our wishes, start talking about options, so when a crisis does occur or a change needs to occur, we already have had some preliminary conversations. We we know what wishes are, and we can do our best to accommodate them because there was planning ahead of time. So people are not prepared for the private care costs. We heard that earlier from Professor Frank and others, that it's just staggering. It's staggering, you know, $38 to $40+ an hour for in-home care. Assisted living, $6,000-7,000 a month or greater. Memory care, I mean, in this area, you know, you could be looking at 10 or 11,000. Nursing home private pay costs $13,000-14,000 a month easily. It's staggering. I mean, so few people can actually afford that.
So that causes the crisis.
That causes the crisis. What do we do? And we talked a little bit earlier about the Medicaid community waiver, which is virtually non-existent in Maryland at this point. It's just a real challenge. Huge strain on resources, critical shortage of healthcare workers. I don't think that we can emphasize this one enough. Both of us have worked in multiple healthcare settings, to include nursing homes, assisted livings, adult day programs, etc. It is really, really, really hard to find good people, good meaning caring, dedicated individuals who want to work with the older population. Very, very difficult. In fact, my own daughter is getting ready to graduate with her nursing degree, and I've been begging her to give older adults such an opportunity, and she wants to work with kids. And she said most of her colleagues in her nursing program have no interest. There's very little emphasis in the nursing curriculum on working with older adults. I do think that's starting to shift some, but it's a huge problem, and I foresee it's going to continue to be a huge problem going forward. All right, woo! There are plenty out there.
Let me tell her real quick. We started to go to universities because it's not about us and my job. I mean, I'm going to retire at some point. It's not about me getting more and more business. I am scared to death of the future of America and needing care. So we're going to universities and trying to think outside the box to go into the field of aging. There will be positions. We will find them. But call us when you're ready.
Call us, absolutely. Anyone else? We can train. Okay, and then finally, the rise of family caregiving and the physical, emotional, and financial toll. And yeah, we're going to talk, I'm just going to talk just for a minute about the caregiving crisis. Most caregivers are family members, and they're juggling multiple responsibilities. We referenced this a few moments back. You know, they have family caregivers have their own issues, whether that's medical issues that they're dealing with themselves, whether that's children, whether that is a job, other family responsibilities, or all of the above. And they're having to make very difficult decisions about priorities, right? And what often is sacrificed? Their own well-being, right? So, yeah, I have to care for mom, or I have to care for my husband or wife, or I have to care for whoever. And of course, I have these children that need this, and I have to make some money, so I have to work. What goes on the back burner? Themselves and their physical health, their psychosocial well-being, and how often, we see it all the time, does the quote-unquote well spouse or well family member, I'm using that term well very loosely, have a very sudden, what might seem to be unexpected health crisis. I just had one the other week. A client of adult children called me frantically. Mom had dementia and also some medical issues, and dad was just fine doing all the caregiving, or so they thought. Dad wasn't doing well at all, and sadly, Dad had a very acute medical event, and the children called frantically, what do we do? It happens sadly all too often. The average time devoted to caregiving per week has tripled since 2020, going to continue to go up. Over 53 million Americans are caregivers. Caregivers are unpaid, family caregivers are unpaid, often untrained. They feel often grossly unprepared for the job. They may feel unprepared from kind of like a technical perspective, like I don't really know how to meet these physical care needs, but they also, in many cases, feel grossly unprepared for having to provide this level of intimate care to a loved one. This isn't what I signed up for. We hear that very often. It's very, very difficult. There is tremendous stress, I guess that goes without saying, financial stress, emotional stress, physical, career, family stress. And there's major grief, loss, and overall life disruption associated with caregiving. And I just want to talk for a quick moment about that. When we talk about grief, most often we talk about grief in the sense of a loss related to death. That's usually how society kind of looks at grief, a loss associated with death. What we, and myself as a therapist, what we focus on often is what we call kind of that anticipatory grief, which can be debilitating. So anticipatory grief is the loss of life as the way you imagined it to be, right? And it's very real. It's very real, and it's not selfish. It's very real. I wanted to travel in my later years. I wanted to, do all of these things with my spouse or my parents or whomever it is, and my life is different now. It's not the way that I envisioned my life to be now because I have to be caregiver to my spouse instead of doing all of these things that I had hoped to do. So there is real loss and grief, and we should never, and we don't ever underestimate that. We focus quite a bit on that and encouraging family caregivers to do a lot of things for themselves. And I think there's going to be a handout actually at our table on caregiver stress and burden and ways to cope, because it's a very, very real thing that's important to proactively address and support the family caregiver.
Okay. Very good point. Well said. Okay, so this is one of my favorite quotes. I use it all the time. I just think it speaks volumes. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. Her message is that caregiving touches all of us, whether we're giving or receiving care. Caregiving isn't personal, it's universal. It deserves our empathy, respect, and support. And this woman, Rosalind Carter, said this way before her time. I don't know the exact time, but I think it was over 40 years ago. Before most of us, are serving in this role, and she said that caregivers serve as the backbone of this country, and they are in a crisis. And that was maybe 4 decades ago. And there's just not enough education and awareness, training, and support. Because 40 years later today, I could say this like it's so current today. And I kind of want to do a really brief exercise around this quote, and hopefully you heard it well. If I'm going to ask you to raise your hands, it's a very brief exercise. If you are in this room and you have been or are currently a caregiver, please raise your hand. I mean, look at that. Now raise it if you think you will be providing care. I need 2 hands. Right? Raise it if you think you will need care. Okay, now I need 3 hands. Because of what I do, well, this is just a funny thing, but again, I like British humor, but like I'm obsessed like with this stuff, right? And advanced directives, and I'm a MOLS trainer in Maryland, and I'm just thinking, and you said such a small percentage really ends up in nursing homes or assisted livings, but where we come from, I'm like, everyone's going there. I'm gonna go there. So my husband like doesn't even want me to talk about this stuff because he's like, when I stub my toe, you're gonna make me a DNR. But for me, like I just eat, live, and breathe this, and I know I am a caregiver. I know I'm going to be providing more care, and I know I'm going to receive care. I doubt I'm going to be walking the dog and go home and just lay on the pillow and drop dead peacefully. I highly doubt. That might be a goal of ours, but it's not a plan. So thank you for raising your hands, and kudos to all of you and us that have been and are caregivers. Thank you. Do you want to do this one? Okay, so there's like 3 slides on this, and really the reason I am putting up solutions and resources, I think individually you have aging life care managers throughout the country, and there's a organization that you can find them on. We have elder law attorneys, we have financial advisors, so there is help out there. Out of all the resources, because I think I have 3 pages of it, what I see are the most important, this is interesting, but chronic management versus acute care management, right? So instead of acute things happening, calling 911, going to the hospital, what are we doing prior to that to manage the chronic care? What do we have in place? What do my advanced directives say? Maybe my MOLS says avoid hospitalization. Why do you keep calling 911? And how are we managing chronic conditions and not having, just a PCP, primary care, referring to a specialist? Like, we need to connect these dots better overall in the entire healthcare system. And then I'm hoping we can avoid acute crisis coming up. The next one is start talking early. I do podcasts. It's basically just called Necessary Conversations. There should be no fear in planning for your future. There should be no fear to complete your living will, your estate, and your advanced directives. And one time I did a presentation on myths, and one of the myths was, I'm afraid I'm going to die when I walk out of the office because I just did my advanced care planning. I mean, so there is a huge fear in this country to plan and think ahead. And even more than just getting the documents done, just talk. I have a 23-year-old, a 20-year-old. I had a dinner. There's this Death Over Dinner on TED Talks. It's super cool. And I don't want to be a burden. I don't want them called to the hospital when something happens to me and the doctor says, what would your mom want? And my adult children scratch their head and say, I don't know. We never talked about it. So really, just start with conversations. Financial and budget planning is also critical. What can we afford? We learned about the Wellesley Group. That's super cool. I'm finding that very affordable. I'm so excited about that. But we don't have it everywhere yet. So we need to budget plan to pay for costs. If your goal is to age in place and you have limited income, we need to maybe readjust this goal or look at what are our options. And again, advanced care planning ensures that you have a voice. Working in nursing homes and rehab centers and seeing what happens when people didn't have their documents in place. We threw the incapable certs on the chart. they're completed rather quickly, and that client at that point lost their voice. So please work with people to ensure that you have a voice, because I promise you, you deserve it. I think that's all for me on that. And then, you know, solutions, like obviously free. Every county has an office on aging. You know, there's life care managers, the attorneys I spoke upon. The CAPS specialist is certified aging in place specialist. Super cool. They come out, they're certified. They look at the house, every little nook and cranny, including lighting and outlets, and yes, chair lifts and ramps and all of that. But that's a great resources. Home care services, skilled, PT, OT, speech, nursing, skilled, covered under Medicare, short term, what happens when those services are done and I need custodial care. That's when I have to pay out of pocket for that. So what have I done to be able to pay for out-of-pocket? VA in attendance, a great resource that helps pay for veterans. There's things to qualify for it. We can all help you with that. And then resources is clinical counseling to deal with the anticipatory grief and that you're losing your loved one possibly right in front of you. And I can tell you it could be a very long journey. It could be 15 to 20 years that you are grieving the loss of someone you are caring for. So I think addressing clinical mental health needs is important. Support groups. Obviously, there's associations for every disease. The associations are awesome, and they offer a lot of education. SHIP is a program throughout the state that helps with Medicare and Advantage plans, and they can even look at your scripts and help you decide what's the best plan for you. So there are some good resources out there. I think that's all the resources. And then I think I had some tips because I've been doing this 30 years. I am extremely passionate. I get extremely close with my clients and their families. And we are hardcore advocates. So we're going to be sure your voice is heard and your goals are met. But the takeaways are, it's interesting, Steve's big focus was on being goal-oriented, and that is completely mine too. That what are your goals to age well? And what happens to your goals when they change and you need care or they're not going as planned? And every goal has to have a plan or you're not going to meet it. Like I said, when someone says, I want to age in place or I want to play golf and go home and die, that's a wish. I hear it all the time. It's kind of funny, but it's not, because it's sad because they might not meet their goal. So it is a goal, but it's not a plan. What is that going to look like? How much is it going to cost? Let's talk about this. And the third thing I learned, I think helping a lot of people pass away, we do a lot of end-of-life care, is that in order to make any decision in life, for any decision, we must be informed. Once informed, we have to be present with where you are or where your loved one is, not where they were, not where you want them to be in 6 months, but where are they now? And until you enter that place, you will not be making the right informed decision. Okay, so that's kind of my stuff. I don't know if you have anything.
Do we have time for questions?
Sure, time for a couple of questions. A stunned silence.
All right. Thank you very much.
We do have one question. Allison and Marcy will be available afterwards for specific situation discussions.
Thank you. I guess I have more of a comment than a question. With a lot of advanced, like living wills and sort of what your wishes are for yourself, just in case, there are always these black and white templated, if I have a terminal condition, if I am in a persistent vegetative state, which has a medical meaning. and a legal meaning. Like, how are you helping people to create an individualized plan for themselves?
I love that question, and we have like an 8-point assessment. When we meet with our clients, it's actually 2 to 3 hours. And it's always an advanced directive review. And sometimes it's literally 10 seconds for me to read through it. But I love that you said that, because anyone that maybe was in school and had problems, or had a child that maybe had some problems, had IEP plans. And I always remember going in to advocate for my child. I'm like, well, my child doesn't fit in this box, this little black and white box. So what are you gonna do about it? And I love that you say those 3 conditions. A lot of attorneys have expanded on that living will medical directive, and you can add things to it, and there's a little more leeway to it. We also have the Maryland MOLST, which actually kind of trumps the living will, because if I'm not in that condition and something happens to me right now, I just signed it today, that is what EMS is going to follow. So we have the MOLST form, we can do it, get a better attorney that's able to go beyond those 3 boxes of, scoping people and pegging them in certain situations that we rarely end up in a very old age. We often see much more things than those 3 things. And there's palliative care programs. So again, it all goes back to the discussion. And there are ways you can meet your goals and wishes and not so much worry about those 3 conditions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Liz and Barbara, the door prizes, please, and the charity raffle.
Okay, we're going to raffle off the rest of the prizes now. This first one is what is that one? The self-care one. We like that one. Okay, what do you got? Jim Arney. Okay. Jim, it'll be up here when you're ready to go, okay? Thank you. And this one is the fall breakfast. Chris Brady. Oh, hi, Chris. It'll be up here when you're ready to leave. Okay. We have another bottle of rosé. Cynthia de Guzman. Oh, right there. Okay. We'll put this over here. Oh, she wants it now? You want it now? Are you going to share with the presenter? That's one of the conditions, Okay. And we also have another pair of season subscriptions to the Columbia Orchestra Jazz Band's 2024-2025 season. And the winner is a really long name. Let me see if I can say this. Casanidas. Oh, did I say it right? Oh. 5 people are raising their hand. Yeah, that's my name. That's me. Okay. There you go. And what do we have here now? We're going to do the Taste of Maryland now. This big one, right here. Timothy Helsing. Nope, everybody in the back is winning. What the heck? It'll be up here when you're ready. And here, I'll just put that there. And this is the tea basket. What's that word? Spitzler. Mark Spitzler? Mark, are you here? Spittler? Oh. I guess neither one of them are here. You know them, Gary? Are you going to collect on their behalf? on the behalf of the Academy, you're going to collect for them? What is the rule if they're not here? Give it to Gary. All right, Gary, you get it now. Okay, nope, we got one more. We have McCutcheon's basket. I don't. Good one. Make it. Oh, and you got to go get the other one too. You gotta get. Come on, Vanna. Robert Slattery. Where's Mr. Slattery? Oh, all right. Oh, wait, see in the back again. I know, in the back. Okay, so now we'll go get the tickets for the charity raffle. Did everybody get tickets? Oh, you've got them. Okay, perfect.
Can I have him draw the Absolutely, yes.
Oh, Andre.
Thank you very much.
Oh, this is a number, not a name.
This is a number.
Oh, gosh. Let me see if I can read it.
This is your red ticket,
Oh, yeah. So get your red tickets out, everybody.
if you bought one.
866-8411.
In the back.
In the back again. See, everybody up here next year is going to sit in the back. Thank you, everybody. When you leave, you can collect your prizes.
Barbara and Liz, thank you. So our next presenter is back again by popular demand. Mr. Andre Lingham. He really needs no introduction in my opinion, but I'll say a couple things. Andre is the founder and president for the Center for Elder Justice and Education, and this nonprofit Andre founded in 2021 promotes elder abuse awareness and education, and its mission is fulfilled by virtual and in-person trainings for older adults, the general public, government agencies, police departments, and private institutions. Andre previously served over 30 years in law enforcement and retired from the Howard County Police Department in 2019 to focus full-time on elder abuse awareness and education. And Andre's helped so many clients of ours that call the office with concerns, and even people from outside of our office that are interested, community members calling us with concerns, and we direct them to Andre and get feedback. He's always just a wonderful resource. So Andre, we appreciate your service as well. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I am close to Social Security age, so we're going to have to talk later. All right. So again, my organization is the Center for Elder Justice and Education. Since we're kind of running a little bit behind, I'll skip all the great things about me, but most of you know me. So today we're going to talk about emerging patterns in elder financial exploitation. And the game is really changing on how predators target older adults. And actually this ties into each and every one of the presenters and presentations that you guys saw earlier. So what is elder financial exploitation? It's the illegal taking, misuse, or concealment of an older adult's funds, property, or assets, and we'll talk a little bit about each one of those as we go through. Some current trends. This is the one I hate to bring up, but you're more likely to be victimized by a family member, or friend, or a person that you know than you are the scammer or the person just calling you on the phone. That's why financial and estate planning literacy is so important to protect yourself. From 2022 to 2023, there's been a 14% increase in fraud reports. The numbers keep going up year after year as we get older, or as the population gets older. This is interesting. Scams starting on social media accounted for $1.4 billion in losses in 2023. And a lot of us are on social media. Around 75% of those 65 or older use the internet. And also approximately 45% of those 65 and older use social media. Facebook, Twitter, different things. This fly is killing me. I'm sorry. But again, as we get older, you're finding more and more older adults on social media. And that's how a lot of these scammers are targeting us. So why are we targeted? Number one is wealth. You guys have all the money. not me, but you guys. Cognitive impairments, dementia, Alzheimer's. As we get older, you may not be diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, but our ability to pick out deceit minimizes. And I can tell you, a lot of my victims have not been diagnosed with any cognitive decline, but as they get older, it's really hard for them to pick out that, hey, this may be a scam. Emotionally attached or dependent on others, when you have a caregiver situation where a family member isolates the other person from the rest of the family. Or a lot of times older adults self-isolate where they don't want to talk to anyone, but they'll take the call from the scammer, unfortunately. Isolation and loneliness. And this is big. When I was on the police department, I only had 2 cases where older adults came in and said, I have a family member or friend that's financially exploiting me. They most times did not want to report that someone that they knew was financially exploiting them. Red flags and warning signs. Probably the biggest one you'll see is unusual activity on bank accounts, large withdrawals, or frequently unexplained withdrawals. Typically, older adults have a set pattern. You pay certain bills throughout the month. You're not really spending a lot of money. And all of a sudden, you'll see a change in that. Sudden failure to pay bills. Working with a gentleman now that basically lost his whole life savings. So we're trying to work through that and get him some resources through a scam, unfortunately. Abrupt changes to wills and other financial documents. I always bring this story up. When I was on the police department, I had an older lady that I was working with. She had 5 kids and had 5 power of attorneys because each one of those kids convinced her to get a power of attorney, naming them as the agent. So as a bank or a fiduciary, how do you manage that? And what happened, a lot of the banks would not deal with her. They said, this is just too complicated. We need to just close this out, because every day they were getting a new power of attorney that supposedly would trump the original one. Isolation from family and friends. Purchase of large amounts of gift cards and prepaid cards. This is huge. If you're visiting someone and you happen to see that they have a lot of gift cards and prepaid cards, 100% they're being victimized somehow. And whatever money that they're sending is being sent through the prepaid cards and gift cards. Mood changes. I had a nice nest egg. Now I've given it all away to the scammers. How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay my car note? Everything that I need to survive, my medication. We see a higher rate of suicides in those that have been victims of financial exploitation. So we're going to start off by talking about artificial intelligence and how it's really playing into elder financial exploitation. So what is this? AI technology uses computers to simulate human thinking and behavior to accomplish basic tasks. I know I use AI. Probably Allison and a lot of us use it now. It's good, but for those who want to use it for bad, it can be really bad, unfortunately. So here's an AI-generated video, and I don't know if you guys have seen this.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
That's interesting because he didn't do that video. And if you actually look at it, the voice patterns and everything was created by artificial intelligence. So you look at it from the standpoint of the grandparent scam or family member scam, and a person calling you on the phone that's mimicking a family member's voice where you actually think it's them. That's why you see a lot of celebrities now thinking about, 30, 40, 50 years from now, how will their image and likeness be used in movies? Because it can be created. Denzel Washington can have a new movie in 100 years. So these are some of the capabilities. Voice cloning, again, we just saw the video. Deep fake videos, again, where they take your voice, your body, your likeness, and get it to say exactly what the computer wants you to say or whatever the person wants you to say. Professional looking emails. Again, you may get an email from a law office or wherever and you think it's a legitimate email because AI will create that email with whatever they want it to say. Phone number spoofing, anyone familiar with that? So basically, phone number spoofing is I put a number in an app, I have it call you. On your end, it may come up Bank of America, or USA Insurance, or Elville and Associates, and you think you're literally getting a call from someone from that agency. Fake invoices for payment. Again, and we'll talk about that a little later also. Fake photos. That's huge. There was a photo out there floating around with Trump and Biden walking through the woods together, and literally it looked like it was a real photo. But that's what they can do, and that's what AI can do. So in every presentation that I do that I talk about financial exploitation, this is one of the main things I try to harp on is if you get a phone call from someone asking for any personal information and the call wasn't initiated by you, please, please, please do not give them any information. That would stop a lot of scams from getting going. I had a situation where USAA called me and wanted to verify the cars that I had on my policy. It was out of the ordinary. I contacted them using the number on the back of my bank card. Never Google like USAA or Bank of America and try to get a number because there's so many fake sites out there with fraudulent numbers that you're calling the scammer directly. This one is still probably near number one of Microsoft tech support scams. I'm sure we've all gotten them. You've gotten a call that your Microsoft subscription has expired, or you get a pop-up on your computer saying click on this link, or you get an email. Never, never, never click on any links. When I get something like that, I immediately shut down the browser, unplug my computer, turn it off, and reboot it. Because what happens if you click on a link, they could put spyware on your computer. So everything that you do, when you sign in to check your email, your bank accounts, every keystroke, they can see that and get into your accounts. Online romance scam, still number one that I see in reports that I get. And basically how it works is you put a profile online, Facebook or a dating site, and someone contacts you. Typically, the MO is they're overseas, they're Americans working overseas. The bottom line is they groom you until they ask you to send them money. Most of the time, you won't even talk to them on the phone or FaceTime or anything because they'll give you an excuse why they can't do that. But just think about the video I showed you with AI and how that could transform, I can't see you, I can't talk to you, into now I can talk to you and see you, where you actually believe that it is a real person. So these are some of the favorite lies that they tell. I or someone close to me is sick, hurt, or in jail. Something they need money to help them out. This is a big one. I can teach you how to invest. Think about that and remember that. I'm in the military, again, far away overseas. I can't contact you. I'm in Afghanistan. We're working on a special mission. I need help with an important delivery. I'm on an oil rig or ship. That's another one. So all of those, some of the main ones that they use. Anyone familiar with the cryptocurrency scam? Very, very interesting. So I'm going to step back and think about the online romance scam, okay? So you're communicating with them, and this is how it will go. Hey, you know, I'm in the cryptocurrency field. You know, you ever think about investing? Nah, I'm not familiar with that. I don't know how that stuff works. Why don't we do this? Send me $500. Let me invest it and see how it works out. They set up a fake website so you can go on and check your account. You invest $500, what do you think your account's going to do? In 1 month, you're going to be up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I had a victim that lost over $2 million in the past couple weeks. It's real. I am telling you, it's real. And do not think you can't be scammed by this. Hopefully now that you're educated, you'll really, really look at it. But it's also, they have a term for it now, it's called pig butchering. They fatten you up for the slaughter. And basically, that's what they do. From the phony profiles, dating apps, investing, fake trading platforms. So initially, they'll contact you via social media or dating app or text message. How many of us have gotten a text message, hey, are we still meeting for dinner tonight? And that's how it will start. Or, hey, it's nice to see you, we had a good time. Like, who is this? I don't know who this is. But that's how they reel you in, and people fall for it. After trust is gained, they convince you to invest in cryptocurrency. And again, they'll set up fraudulent online accounts, and you'll see your profits increase. When you attempt to withdraw your money, they typically shut the account down, disappear. We've even seen them send money to the victim because they know what's going to happen. The victim's going to send money back, and it's just going to keep going on and on and on. Here's a story of a victim that it basically happened to, and the gentleman received a text message.
Celebrating my...
Let's try it again.
Click forward, Andre. Just click forward with the clicker. Celebrating my father's birthday.
Eric Jiang's phone is filled with photos of milestones with his parents, from graduations to award ceremonies. And Jiang's dad, Amos, wanted to help him with the next big milestones.
To help my fiance and I pay for our wedding, and he wanted to surprise us with a house.
And his father thought he'd found a chance to do that after he got these messages from someone who called themselves Lynn. At first, Lynn apologized for texting the wrong number, but Jiang says they kept texting, forging a months-long friendship and asking for advice about immigrating to the U.S. from China. Lynn eventually convinced Jiang's father to send over more than $1 million for a series of supposed crypto investments through a fake trading platform.
It's my entire savings, entire life savings. I especially feel terrible for my parents because I know how hard they worked. You know, growing up, we didn't have a lot. We made a lot of sacrifices.
This report from the Woodbridge Police Department says they informed the Jiangs of the scam after a Georgia detective called them about an investigation there. A victim in Georgia led that detective to bank records showing, quote, large deposits from victims in the greater New York City area.
Probably over 24 victims in about 12 different states.
Detective Michelle Taylor of Peachtree City says she contacted the FBI after tracing the scammer's bank account back to Hong Kong.
It's usually a dead end for us as local jurisdictions.
That bank account is closed, but the website Jiang's father used for the phony investments is still there, encouraging people to sign up. The CBS 2 investigative team copied and pasted language from the site into a search engine and found 10 other sites with the same design and layout. Some of them even use a legit company's name or logo, like Wells Fargo or Trust Wallet, who confirmed to CBS 2 this site is fake.
You really have to be careful. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Every time I'm finished this presentation, everybody's, oh man, I'm so scared, what do I do? This is just for informational purposes that you have to check and recheck. And again, it's all technology driven and how they get you to believe something that's not real, or get you to believe something to invest in. This is a relatively new one that's popping up, is QR code scams, where they're covering up QR codes and putting their own QR code, and when you click on it, it goes to their payment sites. And you've been seeing it at parking lots, different things like that. And here's a short video that talks about how it specifically works.
Out of that consumer alert we've got here today is, QR codes, they're pretty much everywhere, from restaurant menus to maps, but that doesn't mean all of them are safe to use. Consumer reporter Nydia Hahn joining us now live in studio with some alarming statistics and how we can all avoid getting scammed. Nydia.
Brian, it's estimated that this year alone, about 98 million Americans will scan a QR code with their phone. But while QR codes are convenient, you need to pause before you scan. You see them everywhere. Menus, grocery stores, entertainment and sports venues, even on Action News.
You can see a QR code on your screen right now that'll take you to a special section of our website.
By now, you probably know when you scan the code using your smartphone, it brings up a link to a specific website. Then you can just tap that link to go to that online page.
Everyone uses QR codes now and became really popularized due to simplicity manner of it.
However, cybersecurity experts say, as with anything online, you have to be vigilant.
It's almost close to 3/4 of Americans, so 73%, do not actually check QR codes before scanning them.
More than 26 million people in the U.S. have been taken to an untrustworthy site, and 1 in 6 has had personal data stolen. And that's not all that can happen.
A lot of times it could be a lot more malicious than that. So QR code itself, it could take you to a page where automatically your phone gets infected with malware.
So here's the advice. Only scan QR codes given to you by people or organizations you know and trust. If you aren't certain, do an internet search for the web page or for the information you're trying to find. Also, consider using a dedicated QR code scanning app instead of your phone's camera to scan.
Those apps tend to have security measures implemented that stops malware attacks.
If a QR code does take you to an unrelated or suspicious website, do not provide any personal information and exit the page immediately.
How many use QR codes? I know I do on occasion. Now I'm really aware. How many have heard about the scam, QR code scam? So, but it's out there. This is my final section. How much time do I have? You good? You very, very, very rarely hear about this. But in the past 6 months, I've gotten 4 calls related to obituaries called obituary pirates. So what happens is, and here's an obituary. So I'm going to give you a minute to kind of read that, and then we'll look at all the scams that could be related to what's in the obituary. He had quite a distinguished career. That was half of his obituary. Okay, so thinking about that, these are some of the scams that you could get directly from that obituary. An inheritance scam. So in the obituary, it mentioned his grandkids, correct? Grandkids and kids. So they could reach out to them and say, hey, your granddad or dad left you this money, but we need your personal information. Name, full name, address, date of birth, everything related to that, bank account information, so we could wire the money. We're just going to send you some documents to sign. Again, it looks all original, but they got the information from the obituary. Another one is debtors and billing agency scams. They'll start sending out all these bills for medical services, different things like that related to the deceased person. IRS also, back taxes. Your husband or wife owed X amount of dollars in back taxes. Memorial gift scams. I don't know if anyone's seen this, but there was a person they arrested that was scouring obituaries, and then they would show up at the person's house with the Bible with the person's name in it that passed away, saying that this person purchased this Bible and, you know, it's a $20 fee for the Bible. You don't think that stuff like that would happen, but it does. Life insurance scam, another big one. So they could call and say, hey, you know, your husband worked at the HVAC company for over 20-some years, and he had a policy that you didn't know about. Again, I need all your personal information. We'll send you all the documents over for DocuSign. Just sign it, just provide us your information, and we can wire you the money. Now you open yourself up to identity theft because they have all your personal information, and they have your bank account information. Friend of the past. Again, he was in the military. Person could show up and say, hey, I knew your husband, 30, 40 years ago. And he was a great guy, and all the information that you put online gives them more and more information that they need to run this scam. Overall identity theft. You know his full name, when he was born, when he passed away, where he was born at. I'm pretty sure he's got good credit because he had a distinguished career, all that. So some safety tips. And what I really suggest is, if you guys familiar with the credit freeze. If you don't have a credit freeze, get a credit freeze now, and then you don't have to worry about this. Basically what a credit freeze is, it stops anyone from opening up any new accounts in your name. And you get it through the 3 credit bureaus. It's free. Maryland mandates that it's free, but it will stop anyone from opening any new accounts. It won't stop them from fraudulently using cards that they compromise, but any new account, it will stop them. Again, minimize personal information in the obituary. And I just went to one funeral home site and pulled that up, and I could have, pulled up hundreds. What you may want to do is, if you want to post it, just put minimal information. I've seen also recently that said, it'll say obituary will be giving out at funeral services or memorial services. So none of that information is available online. And also have it removed from the funeral home if after the funeral services. Some I've heard will balk at doing that, but it's up to you. And they, you can just have them removed because there's no reason that it really should be up there for months and months or years and years. Do not accept any unknown items from messengers. Again, I was telling you about the guy that was showing up with the Bibles. Notify IRS, MVA, Social Security Administration, and financial institutions that the person has passed away. So some ways to prevent elder financial abuse is, number one, educate yourself, like what you guys are doing here, and how to recognize and report elder abuse. If you're in a caregiver situation or your parents are getting older, educate and re-educate them. I get Google alerts on different types of scams, and probably 2-3 times a day I'll get emails on a scam that I'll say, wow, where did this come from? But it's so many of them out there that it's really hard to keep track of. But you have to, your mom or dad or grandparents, just let them know they are out there, especially a family member exploitation scam. You can sign up for services that monitor financial transactions, report any suspected financial abuse or abuse in general to APS, Ombudsman, or local police department. And this is key. Frequently check on older adults who have few friends or family members. That's key. One scam I didn't talk about was home improvement scam, which is prevalent in this area. And if you'll have an older adult and they live by themselves, and all of a sudden you'll see a contractor at their house a couple times a week, or most of them are just ripping them off, quite frankly. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Hopefully you guys got something new out of it. Again, I'm always seen as the bad guy, but my goal is to educate you so I don't get that phone call that, hey, my mom or dad or uncle or aunt, lost $1 million or a couple $100,000. Yes.
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
I came across a situation recently on a forum. He explained how this happened, but basically it was a man had about $3 million in assets, and his wife developed a severe mental illness and wiped out the account and gave it to a guy in Pakistan. So my question is, for example, if my husband decided he wanted to wipe out the TSP, maybe to, I don't know, give to his new girlfriend half his age, he wouldn't get far. But is there some kind of an alert or something that if he developed Alzheimer's or something like that and he tried to go in and get a large amount of money, that would alert me right away and prevent it from happening in the first place?
Most financial institutions allow for you to put an alert notification, say if a certain amount, a person's trying to wire a certain amount, anything like that. And that I'm glad you asked that question. That's what you really need to do and monitor, especially when they're starting to have cognitive decline. If you were here last year, I think you guys remember my romance scam victim's daughter that came and spoke also. And that stuff is still happening. It is still absolutely happening. I would contact the financial institution. If you're on the account, yes. You could probably just let them know to notify you. If you're not, that's a whole different animal. But I think you would need permission. 1 second? Okay. So November 18th through the 20th, I'm sponsoring a Strategies for Effective Elder Abuse Investigations in Columbia. Oh. He's a genius, I tell you. I didn't know about that. So yes, basically what it is we're targeting state's attorneys, police officers, anyone in the elder abuse field that's interested in learning about elder abuse and how to investigate. I can tell you my over 30 years of law enforcement is very, very, very few law enforcement officers trained in elder abuse. Very few. So this is a 3-day conference. I have some of the best speakers coming in from all over the country. So if you're so inclined to donate for the conference, I have business cards. I'm offering it for free to law enforcement because my goal is to get them trained to be able to serve you guys if you're victims or your loved ones are victims. The problem that we run into is law enforcement agencies really don't have the funds to send people to training like this. So that's why I'm doing it gratis for law enforcement. If you go on the website and you happen to want to attend the conference, feel free. It's not just closed to law enforcement or state's attorneys, but we have some great speakers coming in, some case studies, different things like that. So I really appreciate it. And again, thanks for inviting me. I look forward to this every year. And I could have been home doing lawn work, so this is great. I'm happy and ecstatic. So thank you.
Andre, thanks. He's presented with us so many times, always learn something new. Last presentation, we will end on time, I promise. I've been told that by Steve and Gary. Our final presenter, last but not least, is the law offices of Gary Greenwald's principal, Gary Greenwald. Gary has been practicing in Maryland for more than 40 years. His practice consists primarily of estate planning, wills, trusts, trust settlement, probate, and business law. He's currently an active member of the Columbia Town Center chapter of Rotary International and has recently been honored as a Paul Harris Fellow. He serves on the Rotary's board of directors and has been elected twice as its president. And Gary was selected to the Maryland Super Lawyers list for a 5th time in the field of estate planning last year. And along with Elville and Associates, his firm also has a client care program through the Client Care Academy in Boston, so believes firmly in ongoing maintenance and education. Gary, welcome up. Steve's going to come with you, I believe.
I'm technologically challenged, so give me a moment, make sure we got this up. All right, so the schedule says that we're going to talk about a legislative update, but the good news and the bad news...
Can't hear you, Gary.
How about now? All right, the schedule says we're going to have a legislative update, but the good news and the bad news is there's no new legislation in Maryland about estate planning or trust or wills or probate. So what we're going to do is have a special presentation this morning called Meet the Supremes. Anybody here go to law school? So you know who the Supremes are, right? Not Diana Ross or Mary Wilson. The Supreme Court of the United States. So what I did was I searched far and wide to look for 2 relevant Supreme Court cases about estate planning or wills or trusts. The Supreme Court rarely issues decisions on those types of topics, but I found 2 of them. So what we're going to do is I'll go over the facts of each of the 2 of them. Now, Steve knows what the answer is. Steve knows how the Supreme Court held. He's going to tell you what may be the right or the wrong holding. Then we're going to ask you all out there, if you have an idea, what you think the Supreme Court held and why, and then we'll give you the answer, okay? So the first case was called Clark v. Ramaker. Here, the mother created an IRA which designated her daughter as the beneficiary. Mom died. The daughter transferred the IRA with around $300,000 into an inherited IRA as her own asset. Now, here's the key part of this case. IRAs are exempt from claims of the owner's creditors and are also exempt from exposure in a bankruptcy case. So if you have an IRA and somebody sues you and they get a judgment against you, the IRA is not subject to claims of your creditors. 9 years later, the daughter fell on hard times. She and her husband had to file for bankruptcy. She owed a lot of money. Her creditors sought to collect from her inherited IRA. The daughter claimed that IRAs were exempt from creditors' claims. The bankruptcy trustee and her creditors disagreed. They claimed that the IRA was subject to claims of her creditors. The bankruptcy court held that the inherited IRA assets were part of the bankruptcy estate and were subject to her creditors' claims. On appeal, the U.S. District Court had disagreed and reversed and basically said, now wait a minute, IRAs are exempt from claims of creditors. This case was appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court. So before the Supreme Court got this case, the last decision was the inherited IRA was not subject to claims of her creditors. The Supreme Court now had to decide. Steve, what do you say the Supreme Court decided?
Well, it's a tough one, Gary, but I've been thinking about this. I think the Supreme Court said that if the IRA is less than $750,000, it is not subject to the claims of credit. But if it's more than that, then it's too bad.
Wow, just like we rehearsed. All right, does anybody have any idea, any thoughts? And if you have an idea, please tell us why, and then we'll give you the answer. Anybody? Here's somebody.
I think it depends on the definition of ownership, and if she's really the owner or not, or if it was her mother, and that's what determined what the Supreme Court said.
All right, so just to clear, the answer, I think what you said was, it depends on who the Supreme Court considered the owner to be. So when Mom died, it did become the daughter's. Would that affect your opinion at all?
Well, she put it in the inherited IRA, that's why I don't know.
Okay, that's pretty good reasoning. We'll see if you're right. Does anybody else have an idea? Right over here?
I don't know, is there
See, you're asking me the questions. I'm supposed to be asking you the questions. So I will say this, the 10-year rule does not apply. So would that affect your answer? Okay, the answer is, I think, affirm, I'm not sure, right? All right. Anybody else have any thoughts? Right over here?
I'd say that they probably say, well, it's an IRA. IRAs are exempt from being collected, so the IRA is exempt.
All right, so the third thought was the IRAs are exempt. Let's do one more because we're short of time. Now, wait, you're going to know the answer. I know you. All right, so unless you're going to give a lateral here. All right, what do you think, Bill?
I think that there's a certain way that an inherited IRA has to be registered, and it has to have the name of the owner of the original IRA, and if it wasn't followed to the letter, then she's going to lose.
All right, I think what you said was, as long as it was registered correctly with the daughter, she'll win, but if not, she'll lose? All right, so you ready for the answer?
We're ready.
All right, the court said if it's an inherited IRA, it is not protected from creditors. Here's what the court said, and here's what we can do, all right? The court said that a beneficiary cannot make additional contributions to an IRA, but the owner can. So that was fact number one. Fact number two was that a beneficiary must take required minimum distributions. An owner doesn't have to do that until they're over 70 years old. The court said that the beneficiary can withdraw money from an IRA at any time without penalty. But if you are the original owner, you have to wait until you're 59 and a half years old to be able to withdraw without a penalty. So the court basically said the IRA is not protected. So if you have children and you're concerned about their spending habits, or maybe their domestic situation, they're not protected. But here's what you can do. You can create what's called a standalone IRA trust. You can create a special kind of a trust. This is not a revocable living trust, but a special kind of standalone IRA trust. And you can have the benefits paid into that trust. And if the trust is done correctly, and Steve, if you and I do it, it'll be done correctly, right?
That's right. Okay. That is definitely right.
Then you can shield the IRA benefits from the creditors of your children. You can make sure that the IRA benefits get paid to your grandchildren when your children pass away and not to an unintended beneficiary. Okay? All right. Next case. Who here has been married more than once? Raise your hands if you want to. All right. You're going to be interested in this case. This is a case out of the state of Minnesota. It's called Sween versus Mellon. So here are the facts of that case. Pardon me?
Do we have new slides, Gary?
Oh. Do we? Looks like it. All right. This case arises out of Minnesota. Minnesota passed a law which basically says that if you get divorced or if you die, the beneficiary designation is automatically revoked. This statute specifically revokes, as a matter of law, a beneficiary designation of a life insurance policy to a spouse upon divorce if the beneficiary was married to the owner of the policy when the divorce became final. Put it into plain English, if I'm married, and I am, and I divorce my wife, and I don't change the beneficiary of the life insurance policy, this law would say that the beneficiary designation is automatically revoked. Okay? So here are the facts in this case. Mark and Kay were married. This sounds like a Billy Joel song. Okay. Mark and Kay were married in 1997. The next year, Mark purchased an insurance policy on his life designating Kay as the sole beneficiary. Mark's children from a prior marriage, Ashley and Antone, were designated as the contingent beneficiaries. Mark and Kay divorced in 2007, but the divorce decree was silent about the life insurance policy. Mark died in 2011. Kay and Mark's 2 children made competing claims to the death benefits of the policy. The children argued that under Minnesota law, the state's revocation on divorce law applied. They claimed that the divorce decree immediately canceled Mark's original beneficiary designation by operation of the law, and therefore they became the beneficiaries of the policy to the exclusion of Kay. Kay argued that because the law, now here's the key, Kay argued that because the law did not exist when the policy was purchased, at which time she was named as the primary beneficiary, asserting that the Minnesota law terminated her contract as beneficiary, voided the contracts clause of the U.S. Constitution. So the U.S. Constitution is actually relevant to this case. The contract clause of the United States Constitution prevents any state from passing laws that would alter existing contract rights and protects private rights from state interference. In plain English, the contracts clause says that no state can pass a law that impairs the obligation or the contractual rights of the parties of the contract. Now, just as an aside, I'm assuming most of you here have living trusts. You've probably at some point asked Steve or me, if we move to a different state, will that trust be valid? And we probably said something like, yes, it would. The contracts clause of the Constitution guarantees that. So this is very important. Very rare does a trust or an estate planning issue arise where the U.S. Constitution becomes relevant. Now, the trial court awarded the proceeds to the children based upon the Minnesota law. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed, holding that the retroactive application of this law to an insurance contract that was signed before the law was enacted violated the United States Contract Clause. It awarded the proceeds to Kay. The case was appealed to the Supreme Court, and in an 8-1 decision, and by the way, I have to tell you, both of these cases were decided by the Supreme Court before the last 3 justices were appointed, because now everything is 5-4, right? All right, so the Supreme Court made a decision. Steve?
Gary, I've been thinking about this while you've been describing this, and I feel really sorry for Kay.
Okay.
But she's just going to have to find another policy. I think the kids get it.
Steve says the kids get it. All right, everybody, it's your turn to shine. Do you believe Steve? I heard a lot of no's, Steve. So I will tell you, I'm taking on new clients, all right? So, who said no? Somebody over here? So what? I'm not going to tell you my answer. All right, so why do you say the answer is no? So who do you say will end up with the proceeds? The children or the wife?
The wife.
All right, she says the wife. Why do you say the wife?
Because doesn't federal law supersede state law?
The reasoning, which is, by the way, pretty impressive, she says federal law basically takes precedent over state law, correct?
Yes.
So the contract clause would apply?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 1 in favor of Kay wins. Anybody else? Yes, sir. All right, so this individual, and I know him, he's a pretty smart guy, says ex post facto, this law was applied after the contract was signed, therefore the contract, the original beneficiary designation should be honored. Is that correct? All right, so Kay wins, correct? So it's 2-0. Anybody else? All right, so here's the answer. The court reasoned as follows. The beneficiary cannot, wait a minute, hold on. Wrong answer.
Fail.
Wrong case, sorry. All right. Here's what the court said. Did the law operate as a substantial impairment to the contract rights? That is, does this law substantially impair the rights of the prior owner who's passed away. The court reasoned it did not. Why did it say that? We'll get to that in a second. Next, does it undermine the bargain of the contract? The court reasoned no, it didn't. We'll get to that reason in just a second. Does the law prevent the party from enforcing his or her rights? The answer is no. And finally, the party, that is the owner, could always renew the beneficiary designation. So after the divorce, if the owner actually wanted to change the beneficiary, he or she could. Okay? So what the court basically said was the owner of the policy still had the right to change the beneficiary designation if he or she chose to do so. So after divorce, the owner of the policy could have always said, you know what? I'd like my ex to be the beneficiary. Now, why he would make that decision, I can't answer that. But the answer to the question was, because of the divorce, the owner of the policy could have always redid the beneficiary designation and named the ex. The court determined on I think it was an 8-to-1 vote or a unanimous, that the contract clause did not materially affect the contract rights of the owner. So the court basically said that she lost. All right? The wife lost, the kids won. Oh, I don't know if I have that. Knowing it, probably Borsich, he dissents to everything. In fact, hold on, I think I have the answer to that. I think it was Gorsuch. So we had one more, but we're running short of time. So it is a little after 12:30. Wow, it is. So, Steve, that's Steve, you challenged Steve, so how did you go? Did you go 0 for 1, 1 for 2, 2 for 3? How'd you do today?
I think I was even, 50-50.
Even? 50? That's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Gary.
All right.
Thank you very much. And Jeff has closing remarks, and we're going to have some gifts for our speakers.
Thank you, sir. So this concludes our program. And some brief thank yous. Also, if the presenters could step up briefly, I greatly appreciate it. Steve and Gary, thank you again. Thank you to our vendors today. Ten Oaks Ballroom for hosting, putting on the Ritz caterers and its staff for their food and attention today. And King Audio Visual, thank you. Also, a huge thank to the client event committee that's put up with me for 10 months. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you Monday morning to start planning for next year. And lastly, a thank you to you, our clients, and our financial advisors and interested community members. We really appreciate you being here today and hope you enjoyed yourselves and learned a lot. And look forward to seeing you again soon. And hope you have really happy holidays. It's coming up soon.